And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another special edition of the Court Martial Podcast. I am your Colonial champion, Sean McCarty, bringing you the hottest wrestling reviews known today. Fuck modern wrestling. We're winding the clock back. We're going to be the time misers, and we're going to go back to the days when we were just young warthogs, and we were warthogs running roughshod all over pro wrestling, just like in Backlash 2009, where there was a lot of warts, there were a lot of hogs, and there was whatever the hell that middle segment was. But to join me in reviewing this broadcast is the man of the hour. The man with the power, too sweet to be sour. He is the man who fights for the common man because he is just that himself. Mr. Ho-Hum himself, the Bay Area Brawler, Skyler Greenberg. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you for inviting me with that great introduction. It's fun to be here and review this show back when I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah. How's it? Times have changed. Now we are old and bitter and grumpy. And speaking of old and bitter and grumpy, it's not the two of us today, Sky. We've got the third man. And boy, he is less exciting than Hulk Hogan was in 96, but that isn't going to stop him from talking like he's a big, buff muscle meister, but instead he's just a skinny white boy. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You do you. But it's the leader of TAW Gaming, the proprietor of TAWTF, as well as all the other fucked up shit that he does on that show, JoshAgeddon. Cue it.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Totally Awesome Podcast. My name is JoshAgeddon, and like Sean said, we are reviewing Backlash 2009 because modern wrestling can suck my Alps.
And sucking the Alps is a difficult thing to do. That's a pretty large mountain range.
Yeah.
There's many tips, so you're going to have to lick a lot of frosty tips.
No, I wouldn't be the first time. I'm a seasoned vet in...
Well, speaking of sucking frosty tips,
but real quick,
Skyler, what did you think of Backlash 2009?
I want to be clear that originally I was supposed to pick a pay-per-view, and then I said we had to do a Backlash one, and JoshAgeddon's like, you have to watch 2009.
Yeah.
It's the greatest Backlash of all time.
This was my fault.
So what you're saying, Skyler, is that you diverted the responsibility that you as a co-host had to someone who is a minor entity. We cannot give in to our fan base like that, Sky. We have to hold our ground.
Imagine diverting responsibility to JoshAgeddon.
Well,
that's what I'm saying, though.
Well, the reason why is because I did not pick this pay-per-view. I just want to be clear in saying that. Having said that, this wasn't a bad show? Question mark? It was just a weird show.
Yeah. I'm JoshAgeddon, this was your baby, so why
Yes.
don't you go next for your overall thoughts?
Okay, for me, Skyler said he was in high school. This was like a year before I got into wrestling, because I got into wrestling in like late 2010. But I've always loved this show. This is not my favorite pay-per-view, but it's definitely like in my top 10. I have this show on DVD. I've watched it a ridiculous amount of times. I love this show. There's like one or two things aside from the obvious, like Kevin Dunn's camera cuts and the overall production quality, which is, you know, a point of contention in a lot of our reviews. But overall, I really like this show. One of my favorite things about this show is the aesthetics. I love the logo. I love the stage design. I love the song, Changing of the Seasons. I love the aesthetics of this show. And it's a lot of nostalgia.
The old sets. I really do miss the old sets. This had character to them.
Mm-hmm.
This definitely did feel like it was its own thing, and not the generic pay-per-views we get nowadays.
You mean where it's just one LED screen?
Yes.
Yes to both of those statements.
Anyways.
Hold still. Are you grabbing me?
No, chaos in the booth.
Balls. I can do it. I've been there before.
Okay. Anyways. Sean, what did you think of the show?
This show was fine. It was a good show. It was weird because there was nothing on it that I was like, well, can't say that. Match-wise, there was nothing I was really overtly offended by. In fact, I give them kudos for a lot of the restraint they had on this show. But something was off. Something was off on the whole night, and hopefully by the end of the review, we will be able to pinpoint what that je ne sais quoi ended up really being.
Well, I think we can contrast to the pay-per-view you picked last time, which was Unforgiven 2002. And we also just watched Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar from No Mercy 2004. And there was a word that you mentioned that I think is missing from this show, and it's intensity. And
I will say that I also agree with that. Because Unforgiven and that Eddie Guerrero-Brock match, it has a certain grittiness to it. This did not have that sense of grittiness to it.
I think the overall thing is that we have to remember the time frame of WWE at this point. Because Ruthless Aggression era was what, 2002 to, I want to say, like 2006 or 7 or so?
To mid-2008.
2008 is what they say, because they specifically mention Batista getting fined $100,000 for blading.
Yeah.
And once that happened and they finally put the hammer down on the blood, I think that's when a lot of people turned to that page.
Also,
and so did WWE, because they definitely felt like they turned a page. And you can't spell page without PG.
Yeah, that is true.
Exactly. That's the whole point, is that 08, 09, and 10 was basically the transition to PG era WWE. And PG era WWE isn't bad, but there are things within it that are terrible.
Let me tell you one reason why I think that there was a lack of intensity. The 2002 show and the Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar match, that was before WWE HD. Because back in the day, it looked a little grimy. It looked like you were watching something old and raw. When they moved it to HD in 2008, it made it look a little too pretty, a little too squeaky clean. So there's that part of the presentation.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about moving to HD and how that would affect the quality of the show, but you're probably absolutely right in that respect.
Yeah, so that probably
It's
also
the same
contributed
thing
to
with
that.
the missing flash photography thing is just like, it's something that technology took away inadvertently, but it did.
Yeah, that is true.
And so, but there was redeeming qualities to that in certain aspects, but of course with HD comes a poorly given effort by KD. I'm talking Kevin Dunn. But nothing says grit quite like the ECW title.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah, the WWECW title.
Now, this first match is Christian, being pretty much had just returned off the heels of TNA, just returned Christian, versus the All-American Jack Swagger, the incumbent, if you will.
Back when Jack Swagger did things.
I'm going to say a word, and you're going to hear it a lot about 2009. This is my first statement I wrote down in my notes. Rookie year Jack Swagger was peak Jack Swagger.
Amen to that.
This was kind of a weird pay-per-view because, again, we've been watching wrestling for so long. I was watching these guys, I'm like, oh, they're babies.
Yeah, it's so weird watching them now.
I know, and this gets worse as the show gets on, and you're like, oh my god, I remember when they were young.
I remember when they were good.
Just start watching some Territory Days, and that's going to really throw your ass back. Like, watch a mean Mark Callis match. And then be like, oh my god, The Undertaker was a child. A 6'8" child.
No, I remember, like, I was watching some old wrestling match, and I'm like, wait, that's Steve Austin with hair?
This has a wildly different effect.
But yeah, again, peak Jack Swagger, and that's kind of sad because he could have been more, and there's something I will contrast to the match afterwards with Jack Swagger, but it's like he had it all put together, and then it got lost along the way.
Lost to sports entertainment.
Yeah.
He could have been a great pro wrestler, lost to sports entertainment.
After losing the ECW title in this match, I mean, yeah, sure, he cashed in and became World Heavyweight Champion, but honestly, this was, again, peak Jack Swagger.
Well, then he got busted for weed, and that was
that is also true.
when they actually cared about that.
Yeah.
Which they don't now. They don't even find people anymore for weed.
Well, it's a legalized drug, so it's kind of...
I know, but companies are weird like that.
I think the biggest thing... Well, hold on. Let's get into the match itself. Okay. So, Christian
what did you guys think of it first? We didn't really talk about our impressions. What did you think about the match first off, Sky?
This was a good way to open the show. It was a good, entertaining 11-minute match.
Yeah. I have no problem. Yeah, I pretty much the same. I thought that it was structured pretty well. You know, at a time when WWE could still format themselves a match that was fairly decent with some length to it without feeling like it was milked for time. JoshAgeddon?
I loved this match. I loved everything about this match, from the opening bell to the closing bell. It was very straightforward and simple, and I loved the arrogant but really absurdly athletic Jack Swagger versus the seasoned veteran Christian, who's very clearly fighting more smart. And Skyler brought this up in our group chat. The moment where Jack Swagger, like, military press and just heaves Christian out of the ring, I loved that spot.
No, yeet.
He yeeted him out of the ring. But the way Christian landed, it was obvious that, like, he didn't, like, land awkwardly. Like, again, he landed on all fours and rolled. It would look like it would hurt because, he's a pro. But it just looked so devastating. I loved it.
Yeah. No, and Christian was really a perfect guy to put with Swagger, considering that Swagger was still green at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he was really coming along very well, I thought, with ECW. And Christian was a veteran enough where he could conceal Swagger's weaknesses. But it almost feels, in a weirdest way, it feels like Swagger had more ring smarts here than he ever did the rest of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but there were still things that Swagger could definitely have worked on. I think the biggest problem with Jack Swagger is that he kind of plateaued with this run.
Yeah, and then they decided to add, of all people, Dirty Dutch, and do the whole "We the People" thing, which kind of worked. Kinda?
Sort of. It was a chant that people loved to chant.
Yeah,
and
that was about it. And then
that got over, not Jack Swagger.
And that's also a point. Yeah, exactly. That's the point I want to make. Is that was what WWE cared a lot more about. Is the slogans on the T-shirts and the chants in the arena they could market more than the person actually giving those actual verbiages out.
Don't you miss that one shirt design where it was just a red hand grabbing Jack Swagger's titty?
Yes. I remember that. It was electric blue.
Well, hey, that's the all-American titty right there, so...
That's great. Well, speaking of all...
That's America's ass right there.
You milk it and beer comes out.
Well, did we get a collar and elbow tie-up in this match?
I believe so.
Yes, we did.
Skyler? No, we did not.
We did not.
We did not. Not to start the match, at least. What started was Swagger went to go for a collar and elbow tie-up, and Swagger just dropped down and just took him in a waist take lock. It was amateur wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Swagger... So
Christian tried to lock up. Swagger just went down for amateur wrestling.
Which,
I mean, that's kind of...
Because that's his gimmick.
Well, yeah, but again, in amateur wrestling, you can either go for the collar and elbow tap or you can go for the waist lock reach around, right?
Yes.
JoshAgeddon?
Yes. Well, in the way it starts in amateur wrestling, the referee starts you at the collar and elbow tie-up like you're both just stationary, and then they blow the whistle and you go from there. So, but then after that, that's when you you can either struggle for a second for a dominant position, or drop down, go behind, try to go for a shoot.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But the point is that it was amateur wrestling, so
yes.
I'm not gonna take this out of. I'll allow it.
Yeah, and I personally loved it. I love amateur wrestling being brought into pro wrestling.
It was fine. It made sense for Swagger to do. How could I critique that?
And
it's not what you like.
And also, it gave Christian even more of a reason to try to outmaneuver and outsmart Jack Swagger. One little move that Christian did in this match that just pops me every time I watch it. They're both on the apron, and they're getting tired. They've been beating on each other. Christian just hooks Jack Swagger's leg and uses leverage to flip him back into the ring. Not strength, just leverage and positioning. Every time I watch this match, when he does that, it makes me so happy. It's something so simple.
Well, we really need to do a much more thorough examination of Christian. Because the more that I watch him later on in life, the more I see just how unique his offense is, just how smart he is as far as psychology is concerned. Christian honestly did deserve that world title run and should be acknowledged for just how good he really is. Even though I feel he's still, even after everything he's accomplished, still feels a little underrated.
Well, the issue is because of a certain person, but we'll talk about him in a second.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there. But, so, for example, perfect example of this, as he's got Swagger down on one knee, Christian gets a side headlock on him, but instead of, like, dropping to a knee or anything like that, he just props his body, he squares his shoulders, and he just leans his entire body into Swagger to add to the extra wrench of it. But you can see his whole body, like, tilting to the left like that Michael Jackson thing he did. And it just looks so... It's just different. Everything he does is different. And you don't see that from people anymore.
And another little small thing, there was a part where Jack Swagger hit a huge belly-to-belly suplex and tried to go for a pin, and Christian made sure he stayed off of his back. Because, again, he's a veteran. I love that.
And it's just that uniqueness to him. You know, it was a kind of a fast pace to start, but it did raise the interest. Quick note, Providence, smarky as fuck here.
Yeah.
What was going on with Smarkfitted Rhode Island? That was bad. I can do better.
Smartville.
Yeah, well...
Providence, Smark Island.
In any case. Yeah.
Well, we have to remember that this is 2009, and that the fans that WWE had at that point were starting to get annoying.
Yeah.
Starting. Look how... And they're so much better.
Yeah. Well, let's go, Adam!
Yeah. Exactly.
So, Sean, what did you think of the finish of this match?
Well, before we get to the finish, can I just say that I am all about bear hugs right now?
I know. Okay. It looks a little...
about wrestling. Between Swagger, between pre-2012 Brock, I watched a Bruno Sammartino match the other day, and I'm like, this needs to happen more.
When's the last time...
Sean, you need a hug. Let's move on.
I'll give Sean a hug. I'll give Sean a hug. I'll give you both a hug. But when's the last time you saw a bear hug transition where he leaned down into a pin? Part of me thinks that was real...
Not the way that was done?
Yeah.
The way that was done, I have not seen that before.
Part of me thought it was cool.
No, it was...
But the other part of me is like, there's not really any pressure on his shoulders. It's more just to wear him down more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was just... if you... From the perspective of he was just trying to get him to, like, shoot his shoulder up just to tire him out a little bit more, then that kind of works, but it still looks kind of weird. It's innovative, though.
Yeah.
You're picking at nits.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. But still, JR mentioned, JR got a lot of old school mentions on this show.
Yeah, when he did the,
Cowboy Bill Watts.
Yeah, I was just about to say, he slammed him in the corner, then went for the power slam. He was like, yeah, just like Cowboy Bill Watts used to do.
I'm like, yes, JR, I miss this JR. Although this JR had a very interesting rib pulled on him during this show, but we'll get to that.
We will get to
yes,
that.
But it kind of didn't also feel like more... Did it not kind of feel like more Ronaldo whenever he did the, oh, and this is blank, 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 or this is just like blank, blank, blank.
You know who he reminded me of a little bit later on in the show?
Oh, no.
Who?
Excalibur.
Oh, no!
He did. Ever so slightly. I just looked at JR and I'm like, with Michael Cole here and King here, he just... And I love JR, but God, he sounded like Excalibur sometimes, just not as insufferable.
Well,
But
for me...
This is where guys like Excalibur learned how to call, because, they grew up watching JR, so they became him and his worst habits.
Well, I want to be JR, but only JR can do what JR does.
To be fair, whenever he would go into, like, old wrestling, it works for him, at least in my opinion, because, you know, JR's kind of old, and it makes sense for him to be like, oh, that was Cowboy Bill Watts, because he has the voice for it, he's country, he's old, so it works.
And he knew Bill Watts, and he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
By God.
But here's my thing. Here's the thing I wrote down about the commentary, then we'll talk about the finish. JR sounds organic.
Mm-hmm.
King sounds organic. Cole sounds like he does now.
Yeah.
Scripted.
Yes, but I like this version of Cole more because he still sounded somewhat like he was talking for himself.
It's because this is younger Michael Cole.
He was talking to himself. But he had a cadence about him. Anytime that a line was fed, you could tell. And this is where that started. Then we get this finish, which is cheating turnabout fair play.
Mm-hmm.
Question mark.
So, Skyler, what were your thoughts about this finish?
It was the veteran outsmarting the young heel. Well, hold on. Yeah, I guess that's about what it is.
That's the closest thing I could come up with. So, for those of you, just to recap what this is, in case you've never watched the show before or do not have the Peacock,
buy it on DVD like Joshua did.
Yeah, or just spend the $5 a month, watch it, unsubscribe during the free trial. Bam, saved you a click. Didn't hear that from us. Anyway. The way this match finishes is that Jack Swagger goes to take the turnbuckle pad off of the turnbuckle. The referee sees him and goes, hey, you no do that. And now Christian sees that Swagger is untying a turnbuckle and goes, no, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to take off the turnbuckle. Takes off his turnbuckle, and then Swagger goes, as the referee is putting the first turnbuckle back on that Swagger removed, Swagger goes to charge at Christian, hits he ducks, and Swagger hits his head on the exposed ring post.
No, his chest.
Well, he ducked his head like it was his head, but it might have been more efficient. It was in his throatal section.
His throatal section.
It's really irrelevant because Christian then hits the kill switch, cover 1, 2, 3, and Christian wins the ECW belt. And the crowd was actually kind of into this victory, which was nice.
I loved this finish. Well, let me real quick.
But here's the thing. Yeah, go ahead.
My absolute favorite thing about this finish. When Christian got the 3, the first thing he did was, oh shit, I better cover the turnbuckle. And he's over there trying to cover it up, but he can't. And then the referee comes over with the belt. He's like, oh yay, I won! It was so funny.
But you know what? Props to the referee, though, because the referee made sure to keep his back to that turnbuckle as he was raising Christian's hand. He made sure that he was not going to turn over there and look and be like, hey, what happened over here? He kept his body positioned so that Christian wouldn't be caught in a bad position.
Christian frantically trying to fix the turnbuckle so he wouldn't get disqualified post-match was just so hilarious.
Yeah.
No, that honestly kind of felt like it was like, oh boy, the boys are going to rip me after this one.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was a good opener for this show.
I agree.
But it was another evidence that the ECW title meant absolute jack shit compared to the actual titles on the show.
That is true. This could have very easily have been like an Intercontinental or U.S. title match.
Yeah. Which is fine, because that's what the ECW title was, but it was what the title was at that point, but it's kind of what it needed to be. And of course, we all remember that ECW was disbanded a year later, so...
Yeah.
And to be fair, Christian was a good person to segue the belt onto, especially because you were going to do that triple threat match with him, Swagger, and Dreamer. What was it, 2 months later?
SummerSlam.
No, it was Extreme Rules.
Yeah.
Extreme Rules.
Which was the last chance for Tommy Dreamer to ever win the belt. And so it was, and I believe that he pinned Christian to do it.
No, he pinned Jack Swagger. I
think. Oh, sad face.
He pinned Jack Swagger, and then Christian and him had another match for the title.
At Night of Champions.
Christian won. It was kind of weird because it was two baby faces wrestling each other with weapons and shit.
But in any case, that's what ECW was. But it was still great to see Christian back, and his momentum had not slowed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and then Christian is backstage, and they do the celebrations. We got Evan Bourne. I think it was... Hold on, who was it? Was it like Finley or something?
It was Finley and Tommy
Finley
Dreamer.
was there.
Finley and Tommy Dreamer.
And then on the night when Christian wins a belt, the story immediately turns to his former tag team partner, Edge.
Yep.
You know why I don't care about you, Christian? Because I'm more important, because I'm in the main event.
But I'm going to beat John Cena.
And honestly, this was not Edge's most thespian moment.
Yeah.
This promo was not that good.
Oh, it was not. Oh,
it was not that good. He's done way better with way better material. And then Christian, and you notice neither of them could look into the fucking camera.
Yep.
They both had. I mean, at least they were talking to each other. Right? Fine. But Christian would look off at an angle. What happened to you, man? Ed's just like, huh? What happened to me? You want to know what happened to me? What happened to me was, this happened to me. I am Edge.
Accurate.
And no. What happened to me? John Cena.
Remember when you used to be, I don't know, fun?
For the last promo for this feud that they would ever have, this was such a disappointment. I was like, I mean, fair enough, because, by the time they've been feuding for like 3 years at this point, between the two of them. But speaking of things that went on for too long, and I'm not talking about the legend here, folks. It's Chris Jericho versus Ricky Steamboat. And I would like to begin this review by saying that I forgot that Ricky Steamboat was on this show, but I do respect the fact that he went out there and went as hard as he did with Chris Jericho. And this match I thought was surprisingly good. I didn't know how well it would hold up, but Ricky is a veteran. And Jericho was doing a really good job, like we saw with Flair, kind of leading everything around to make sure that it all went the way that it should have. So, all in all, this was a pretty good piece of business. Sky?
Why is it that Chris Jericho keeps being booked in these matches against old people?
Because he was getting a glimpse into his future.
Yeah.
Again, this was a good match, question mark. Again, I respect the hell out of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat basically winning a contract with his performance with that 3-on-1 match at Mania.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's hard not to cringe a little bit every time you watch him.
Well, that's for any 50-year-old, but I tried to let that go just for the fact of being like, all right, how many other 50-year-old guys can have the kind of match that Ricky just had?
Yeah, Josh, again, how'd you feel about it?
I loved this match. Although I do think it went on a tad too long, but I really loved this match. JoshAgeddon, I have a feeling that you just have just that line just on a tape recorder, and every time we're like, what did you think? You're like, click, I love this match. Are you accusing me of repeating myself a lot? But I'm 100% serious.
I'm not saying that you graduated from the Department of Redundancy Department. I'm not saying that at all. What I am not saying is what is not being said. And what is not being said is John Cena.
Do.
But anyway,
Yes, we did.
Yes. The answer is yes. I wrote down 2 words after that count. Ricky Steamboat.
Wow.
Maybe you should have invested in Keeps before Keeps was a thing.
Yeah.
You should have kept the headband.
Seriously.
Yeah, yeah, he really. He looked better at WrestleMania when his hair was gray, but in this his hair was black and it just looked worse.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
When it was gray, the big bald spot was less noticeable when his hair was gray.
Yeah, he looked like Mike Jackson. There's a reference for you kids out there. Anyway, I'm gonna make another statement. This is a theme. We were talking about the Department of Redundancy department. 2009 Jericho is peak Chris Jericho.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah, we're gonna hear that a lot tonight.
Yeah.
There was a spot in this I loved, which was when Steamboat's getting shined and he skins the cat and Jericho immediately hits him with a clothesline back out.
Yes, I immediately knew that was what you were going to say. It was great. But every time I watch this match, the one part that makes me cringe a little is when Ricky tries to put on the figure 4. And he stumbles.
Oh, wait. We are
I know, but I just want to say, my heart went out to this man.
I know what you mean.
My heart goes out to this man. He tried, and then Jerry Lawler was trying to cover for him by saying, I hate a figure 4. I hate putting it on. I hate having it put on me. Trying to cover for the man.
Okay. Again, Josh, you are way too far in the match.
I know.
Also, Jerry, since when the hell did you get put in the figure 4?
When have you ever put on a figure 4?
Oh, God, I need to watch more Jerry Lawler matches. I bet you there's plenty of times Jerry got put in the figure 4 in Memphis. You kidding me?
Okay. Anyway, let's rewind the clock a little bit, okay? This match, the reason why we say it's peak Jericho is because when Jericho had the submission moves on and he was trash-talking folks, this was what was missing from Jack Swagger. Because, again, playing to the crowd, getting the heat. Jack Swagger wasn't doing that. He should have learned a little bit from Chris Jericho and how to get heat from the crowd and the people.
Scream, ask him! 100 times.
Ask him!
Ask him! Ask him!
Ask him!
The part where he's yelling at him and he says, the part where he has him in the headlock and he says, you're washed up, you're finished! Ask him! Has been seared into my memory. Because it's so good.
Yeah, and you wonder where these old school Magnation jokes come from.
Yeah, it's so good.
This is the kind of... And this is where it came from, and stuff like this. And Jericho was louder than he's ever been.
Oh, yeah.
Doing it, too. And Steamboat, I have to say this, though, because they exchanged a bunch of back suplexes, and they looked devastating, but they were incredibly safe.
Yeah.
Jericho landed this man perfectly flat on the back suplex. Textbook.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing of why Chris Jericho is the one to get these types of matches against guys like Flair or Steamboat or Snuka or Piper. It's because his offense is safe. It's reliable. It's not going to hurt someone. And you can get a lot from a little.
Yeah. And we kept going, and it was really nice. I loved the sunset flip right into the walls of Jericho. The funny, then we get to the figure 4.
Yeah.
I wrote down the figure 4 took a sec for Steamboat to remember how to do it.
Yeah, poor Steamboat.
Because he was ready for it. He's like, and he picked his leg up and went the wrong way. He's like, no, shit, that's not right.
Yeah.
Put the leg over here, and then put this, I think, okay, yes? Yeah, okay, close enough.
And then they were both like, we're right next to the rope. Fuck it, grab the ropes.
Yeah.
Because you could clearly see that he didn't have both of his legs hooked.
Yeah.
And at least Jim Ross had the ability to cover and say, Steamboat did not get all the figure 4 that he wanted.
Yeah, I thought that was hysterically funny, though. I'm like, you know what, Ricky? You're allowed that. You get a pass for that.
Yeah.
But then they do the second rope into the code breaker. After the big splash, which was really nice.
Which Jericho didn't get all of that code breaker.
Well, I don't think he ever got all of that code breaker, to be honest. that move ever quite landed the way that Jericho thought it was in his head.
Yeah.
But regardless, Jericho finally gets Steamboat in the center of the ring with the walls, and that's enough for Steamboat to tap.
Well, real quick, before that, I love the callback to the WrestleMania 3 match with Randy Savage, where he tries to scoop slam him. Ricky counters it into a small package, only hooks one leg just like a WrestleMania 3, but Jericho kicks out. And everyone's like, oh, that was the WrestleMania 3 spot. And then the Walls of Jericho.
Yeah. No, it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
It was, for what Ricky was at this time, and I wish that he had not been in that stupid 10-man tag later on, which ended up being his final match. I wish that this was it.
No, this was it. The 10-man tag was the 10-man tag.
Before.
The 10-man tag was the night after WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
David
right.
referenced it and said he looked great in that 10-man match.
You are right. So this was his last match.
Yes, it was, and he actually went on record because Ric Flair wants to have a one-on-one match with him today, like nowadays, which is so absurd. And Ricky actually went on record and said, "I want the memory of me and my match with Jericho in 2009 to be people's lasting memory of me."
Like, his ever last official match was him with his son defeating Trent Beretta and Kalen Croft in FCW on Father's Day, and he said that was enough for him.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm not going to embarrass myself with a 73-year-old Ric Flair.
I mean, who would want that?
Yeah, basically. And I respect the hell out of him for that stance, but I also respect the hell out of him for this match with Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
Because this really was good.
Mm-hmm.
And it was better than it had any right to be.
I remember
by today's standards.
the first time I ever watched this, I was blown away by this match.
Yeah. That's where having a guy wrestle against a younger guy, but you're still putting the younger guy over.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with Jim Ross saying, I don't think Ricky Steamboat has ever tapped out, and he tapped out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And right after this is when Jericho went on to have his Intercontinental title feud with Rey Mysterio, which was awesome.
Which might be, I know everybody loves that feud with Michaels and Jericho,
mm-hmm.
but I think his feud with Mysterio might be my favorite feud that he was ever in WWE.
They had better matches.
They had better matches.
They had better matches. I think they had better chemistry, just in their dynamic. I think that Shawn Michaels at that point really wasn't the babyface that Mysterio was at the time, especially because Shawn was starting to wind down and then, goes into those feuds with The Undertaker. Shawn was at a point in his career where a lot of what was known about Shawn really started becoming a little more public
mm-hmm.
with the advent of the internet. So people didn't want to cheer Shawn as much as they still wanted to cheer Ray. And Jericho was such a bastard at the time that having him have the height and weight advantage significantly against his opponent, who was as good as Mysterio was, led to just all in all just better television.
I will say that at Extreme Rules 2009, the No Holds Barred match with Jericho and Rey Mysterio, one of my all-time favorite match finishes is when Rey Mysterio goes for the 619, Jericho rips the mask off, roll up 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And wins the Intercontinental title. That was such a perfect finish.
Also in that feud, and then we'll go back to this show.
Mm-hmm.
Also in that feud, which was really great, is that one episode of SmackDown where Ray is doing his thing where he's got the mask and he's putting his head to other kids with masks, and he does it with one guy, and the guy has the mask, he just beats the shit out of him, and it's Jericho who pulls the mask off, and it's Chris. I'm like, oh, that was good.
And then a couple weeks later, Rey Mysterio, it's Jericho versus Jeff Hardy, and then all of a sudden, this kid jumps out of the audience. Hurricane Rana's Jericho into the post, and it's Rey Mysterio who jumps right back into the crowd. And there's two other little kids dressed the exact same way. And Jericho's like, "Which one is Rey Mysterio? I don't want to attack a child." And gets counted out. Just awesome.
He's not Bray Wyatt.
I love that.
He doesn't love the children.
He doesn't love the children.
What's not to love about children?
Speaking of not being a loved child, our next match.
Hold on. Was this the point in the show where we get Santino?
No. That's before the
backstage.
Oh, backstage, yeah. I fake Henry! You know what?
I was trying to skip over it, Sky, but you wouldn't let me.
No, we have to talk about
That
it.
unibrow.
This is garbage.
Yeah. All right, moving on. That's all we had.
Yeah, it was not very
No.
good.
This is garbage. Why does Beth Phoenix have to be involved in this? Who was that with her, by the way?
Wasn't that Alicia Fox?
No. That was oh my God, what's her name? The Rosa Mendez. Rosa Mendez. That was Rosa Mendez.
Rosa, oh fucking hell.
Yeah, it was something.
Yeah.
This Beth Phoenix was the shining star, and I'm not talking about the real estate seller. In a division of divas.
Yep, that is true.
This is what she was subject. This was the big important women's match on this women's segment on the show.
Yeah.
Was this interview and then what came later?
Yeah.
That should tell you what the feelings were at the time because of Mr. Laurinaitis and his insatiable lust for pretty blondes that he can't get in real life.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird because he had a kid anyway, so I don't know.
But was the baby mama blonde?
And was the baby left in a burning building by his brother and half-father? Well, speaking of people
Well, he played for the NFL, so...
What a transition.
It's Kane versus CM Punk.
Sean is the king of just what the fuck transitions.
That's why I'm here.
We went from A to what the fuck.
A to W.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right.
damn it, John.
That's right. I'm on fire right now. And speaking of people who are on fire,
Stop.
it is Kane versus Pepsi Master CM Punk.
This fire
Because
burns.
this fire still burns.
Wait, why did we say that at the same time, Skyler? We've been doing this for too long.
The world is gone, and now you know.
Oh, Jesus.
Anyway, this was at a point where they were just debuting WWE Superstars on WGN America and were trying to make it sound important. It's not.
Do you remember what the first ever main event of Superstars was?
I'm pretty sure it was myself versus Umaga in a steel cage, and I got
Okay, I know this one, okay? Let me say it.
Say it, Skyler.
No, it's WWE main event, right?
No, Superstars.
No.
Main event wasn't until 2012.
Okay, I know the main event debut. I don't know what Superstars was.
Matt Hardy versus The Undertaker.
Yeah.
Which in 2003 was great. And I mean that, it was. Matt was good.
And I actually watched that match, and it was not that great. It was just filler. It was a wasted appearance of The Undertaker.
Just like that show. I also find it interesting to say that it wasn't a waste of talent for Matt Hardy.
Well,
That was because Matt Hardy was still good at the time.
Yes. Well, anyway, there's a very strange sign in the crowd, and I would like one of you to try to decipher this, and I think, JoshAgeddon, you're going to be the one to do it.
okay.
There's a sign in the crowd right before they start that says, "Pepsi is not Edge." And I'm pretty sure that was meant to say edgy, but it seemed strangely placed. Like, no, that's CM Punk. That's not Edge.
Edge comes out and says, "Correct. I do not like Pepsi.
Fuck John Cena.
I like Dr. Pepper."
Fuck
You know
John
who likes
Cena.
Pepsi? John Cena. Oh, man, we just go full corporate here.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that were corporate, Kane...
Here, got these transitions.
No, he wasn't corporate yet.
No, he wasn't corporate yet. He turned corporate, though.
Mm-hmm. And then he became the mayor.
In this matchup.
I believe so.
I still think the sign next to that Edge one saying CM Punk is DMS is still funnier.
That's also good. That's also very good. Did we get a collar elbow tie-up, Sky?
No.
We did not.
We did not.
And the reason why is that instead, CM Punk was kind of circling around the ring, just getting errant kicks, as Kane was just trying to corner him. It was a lot more cat and mouse of the bigger guy trying to corner the smaller guy. So, I guess that's fine.
I mean, the collar and elbow tap doesn't have to start every match if it makes sense for why it doesn't start. And again, CM Punk is not going to collar and elbow tie up Kane because he's going to lose that battle.
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
Well, not with that attitude.
Yeah. Well, then, what did you guys think of this match altogether, Skyler?
This was a good match, but it's one of those things where, like, Kane in 2009 was not...
Yeah.
People didn't care about Kane in 2009.
No. I don't think that new theme did him any wonders.
He needed a change, but it wasn't the best change.
Yeah. JoshAgeddon?
I thought this match was It was very, very passable. It felt like a filler segment, but it was all right.
It was CM Punk really trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. This match was okay.
Yeah.
I did like the whole choke slam onto the apron counter into the kick.
Yes, I did like that too.
That was really cool. Then Kane gave CM Punk an Irish whip, which Punk was supposed to like hit the ring post, but he missed by a good 2 feet and had to just kind of roll to the ring post in order to get. And then Kane hit him with the drop kick or the baseball slide, which looked devastating.
Yes.
But the Irish whip part was like, well, that was some setup.
Yeah, well, that drop kick, though, was brutal, though.
It was. And then we had the choke slam to the arm bar. I cannot... Here's my one major comment on this. I cannot unhear Kane's Batman TV reactions.
Ah!
Yeah! I'm like, dude, chill.
I'll tell you what I can't buy. Okay. There's a part where CM Punk had been working on Kane's arm a little bit, so Kane goes for a choke slam with the bad arm. CM Punk hooks his arm into the arm breaker slam on the mat.
Ain't that cute?
And I'm just like, wouldn't that hurt CM Punk's back as well? Because he hit the mat pretty hard. If that hurts Kane's arm, why wouldn't that also hurt CM Punk's back?
It was adorable.
I know it was an adorable one, but...
It was absolutely cute AF. But I know
Cringe.
what you mean. Yes, you started this.
Yes, guy.
Well, all I had to do was ask him.
Come on.
Ask him! Is it cute, ref? Ask him!
Come on.
Cool. Then Michael Cole, ever the expert name caller, says, CM Punk hits a roundhouse kick, and he's like, what an enziguri!
Yeah.
And JR's like, and a roundhouse kick. And a roundhouse kick. And oh, look, another roundhouse kick.
Yeah.
Because the trick with the enziguri is you're supposed to jump first.
You're supposed to step up. Like, use their feet to step up their body for the kick. That's why it's called a step-up enziguri.
Right. Well, then what did you two think about this finish? We'll start with JoshAgeddon.
The finish, in my opinion, was the best part of the match because, again, his arm's been worked over the entire time, so he catches CM Punk's leg and uses both arms to hoist him up for the choke slam. So I very much like the finish. It made sense.
Sky?
My interpretation is like, Kane is like, I'm sick of this shit. I'm gonna fucking murder him. And he did.
Also that.
Okay. Here's my question. So, CM Punk won the Money in the Bank briefcase the year before. I'm going to walk you through this question. He wins it the year before. He wins the title off Edge after Batista beat the teetotal shit out of him. He goes on to have a pretty underwhelming World Heavyweight title reign, where the people want to see him as world champion, but something's off. He perhaps isn't the person he should be or is going to become later. It's just not time. He loses the title pretty unconvincing fashion, just whatever, it was kind of dropped. And then eventually Punk wins Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 25. So then the first matchup, the first show that he has where as Mr. Money in the Bank is a match where he loses clean to Kane when people still aren't ready to make him feel like a world champion.
It gets worse. The very next pay-per-view, he loses clean to Umaga.
Is that the Samoan strap match?
No, that was the one at Extreme Rules. There's it's Backlash, then Judgment Day, then Extreme Rules.
Right.
So
it just doesn't make sense why Kane would win here. Kane doesn't need the win. But even though Skyler is absolutely right in saying that Kane was cooled off, it's not like him losing this match was going to damage anything. He needed to be reinvented. So why have him win here?
Well, for one... Go ahead and make your case, Skyler.
You go first. No, Josh, again, you go first.
Okay. My thing is, they do this a lot. They usually have whoever wins Money in the Bank lose before they end up cashing in the title. Because from what... This is my theory. Not Austin theory or, theory, not the United States champion. This is my theory. They like to beat the Money in the Bank holder so you less expect them to cash in. Because if they're winning all the time, you're going to be thinking, oh, they're going to cash in soon. They have momentum. They, in a weird way that almost makes sense, but not really, is kind of dumb. They like to cool them off so you can, more out of nowhere with the Money in the Bank. Like, at WrestleMania 31, when Seth Rollins cashed in Money in the Bank, he lost a match to Randy Orton immediately before cashing it in. To make it more like, oh, he's not going to cash in because he's lost. That's at least my rationale.
You know what's funny? Before you say your piece, Skyler, I want you to keep that thought in your mind because I want to hear what you have to say. Just kind of on a little rider to that, that's something WWE has been doing for fucking ever. Mm-hmm. WrestleMania 10, Owen Hart beat Bret Hart. Mm-hmm. And then Bret beat Yoke at the end of the night to win the belt.
Exactly. It's a WWE-ism.
This is not different. And it's still really stupid.
Yes.
Unless the plan is, at least with Owen, you can make the case, I beat you on the same night, I deserve a title shot, you can work a program with that.
And they did the same with Randy Orton.
But to just have your Money in the Bank winner get beaten in the powder so that they have zero momentum going to cash in the belt, then they feel like The Miz.
Mm-hmm. I mean, remember, another one in 2014... in 2015, when Sheamus won Money in the Bank, the next pay-per-view was Battleground, and he lost clean to Randy Orton for no reason. They like to do this...
He lost 4 times and then randomly cashed in on Roman Reigns, who was the one guy who wasn't going to get cheered by beating Roman Reigns.
Yeah. They do this all the time with the Money in the Bank holders, unless the Money in the Bank holder cashes in before they have time to have another match.
Yeah.
They do this all the time.
Tyler, the floor is yours.
Well, here's my thing, is that, yes, well, okay, let's address the Seth Rollins one first, okay? The Seth Rollins one was unplanned until, it happened with the whole thing of, we're going to do the, what do you call it? The action. That was because they were like, we need to do something because they realized kind of halfway through the match with Roman and Brock, from what I understand, this isn't going to work. We need something to change it. Mm-hmm. And also Vince McMahon having one of his genius ideas, which you have to admit it worked, right?
Yes.
Perfectly.
Mm-hmm. The heist of the century!
The heist of the century, which is cool. Here's the thing. WWE has faith in CM Punk. They know that their waiting with him is going to be perfect because they know that he can be a good world champion. I mean, they put the title on him. They gave him the ECW title, the Intercontinental title. They kept giving him championships and opportunities.
That is true.
So they knew what they had in CM Punk. And yeah, you're right. They did the whole thing of beat the Money in the Bank holder so that when the time comes, you don't expect it. Also, who he cashed in on had arguably the greatest feud of 2009.
That is also true.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not like I don't understand where CM Punk was and where he was going at this juncture. And with CM Punk, you're right. You do have the faith in him. And here's just something about CM Punk. I thought about this the other day. WWE always gave CM Punk quite a lot. They had a lot of faith in CM Punk where some people would say that he was pretty catered to during years where they were really trying to find or needed a star other than John Cena. which is really all they had of major consequence, because everybody else had either cooled off or was there too long.
Or retired, because again, we're talking about the transition years. Shawn Michaels would be gone, Edge would be gone,
yep.
Triple H would start taking more part-time roles.
Yep, and Punk was a great ad, even though a lot of people didn't have faith in him. But then you say, you know, the whole incident in 2014 and his whole thing about, like, this is what they did and this is how they mistreated me. You could kind of see WWE's case of, like, well, you weren't really the archetype of what we were looking for, but we still gave you a lot of concessions based on what you needed and what you wanted because we saw that kind of faith and talent in you. So it's kind of a shame that it all, like, exploded the way it did when you think about it.
That's true.
Because there really was a healthy relationship between the two, even if the road was really starting to burn Punk out.
I can agree with that.
But in any case, that's the whole thing with Punk and the briefcase. But this match was fine.
Yeah, it was filler.
Also, again, it's a little whiplash to see CM Punk this young with hair.
Yeah. I love CM Punk's hair back in the day.
Yeah, it was. I still like "This Fire Burns" as a theme song. Me too.
Remember when Randy Orton had it for a week?
I'd like to see them. If Tony's gonna spend the money licensing music, I would like to see them just once have him come out to "This Fire Burns."
Now watch him do it at Double or Nothing tonight, and then you're gonna get real mad. Well, by the time this is aired, I will have already known whether they did it or not, which, by the way, it is Memorial Day weekend after all. And happy Memorial Day, everybody. It took us 56 minutes to get into our hellos and welcome on Memorial Day. And this is where we're recording and what you're watching. And now, speaking of unlike the United States, who never quits, even sometimes when they ought to, we're going to go to a match I quit. And not because I stopped watching, but because that was the stipulation. Jeff Hardy versus Matthew Hardy. And we start with a package of Matt and Jeff, and they describe the whole story and what happened at WrestleMania, even though I still am super happy Matt Hardy got his WrestleMania moment. Matt Hardy records this from, like, a backstage area or from the ring. Jeff Hardy records this apparently in Darby Allin's house.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know where he was.
Like some weird staircase.
Where that was taking place. I did not understand that. Then we get this matchup. The one thing I noticed, I'm going to add some a critique of Kevin Dunn, if I may. I know that's not usually accepted around here.
Go ahead.
Jeff Hardy gets into the ring. Jeff Hardy jumps up and he does his his big pose into the corner. And the second he gets up and poses in the corner, smash zoom out with the camera. It's like, I'm Jeff Hardy. Here's everybody else. It didn't work, and it honestly reminded me of when they did that with the Best Friends in AEW.
But it was the whole thing of look at Jeff Hardy being embraced by his fans.
Yeah, it just didn't work. It just, especially because Providence was really smarky.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where it hurt the show.
The crowd has to, like, be into it and going crazy for that shot to work.
Yeah, Jeff should have been, like, really cheered, and he was kind of cheered.
Yeah.
And Matt Hardy was kind of booed. But this is one of the things, Matt comes out, and I don't care. I don't care for Dreadlock Matt Hardy. I don't care for Big Money Matt. I don't care for anything he's done in AEW. Broken Matt warmed up to me, but that look was just so unique. My favorite Matt Hardy wrestling look is the 2009 Matt Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
It looks the best. It's a subtle change to tights that I loved. It made his whole turn feel more palpable. It's sometimes with WWE format, it's the little things like that add to what's already being presented.
Once again, this was peak Matt Hardy.
Have you not said, Sean, that this is your favorite feud, Matt and Jeff Hardy?
This was one of my favorite Matt Hardy feuds that he ever did. Yeah, I mean this feud was honestly, it was 2009 WWE gimmicky. Like, Jeff, I killed your dog, and Jeff's like, why'd you kill my dog? And then they fight.
It's so Shakespearean.
And that was pretty much, that was it. You know, just Matt got jealous of Jeff, needed to erase Jeff Hardy. Even though, you know,
You mean delete?
Yeah, ahead of its time, perhaps. Did we get a collar-double tie-up in this match?
No.
JoshAgeddon?
No.
No, we didn't. But it's a grudge I quit match, so I want to be upset about these non-collar-double tie-ups, but they're all making sense.
Is it weird watching a WWE show where things make sense sometimes?
Yeah.
Collar-double tie-up is not called for in angry match situations, which is... Don, I know you are dying because you are like, the collar-double tie-up must be respected.
I'm just conflicted. It's just a strange feeling where it all made sense in context, but I've been so, like, clung to the point of matches need collar-double tie-ups from today's wrestling that when I see a show where there's 1 out of 4 collar-double tie-ups and I can't really be mad at any of them, it's just odd.
I think it's because the collar-double tie-up thing is because they start a match stupidly. If they start absolutely no sense, then that's the problem with the logic.
I think every match should start with a hockey fight. What about you guys?
Fuck you.
He said it better than I was going to say it. So, we get another dive, and I say that just because there were quite a lot of replicated moves on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a little surprising for 2009 WWE. But I mean, that's why I kind of made the point about Christian, though. Because nothing that Christian did, anybody else did on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Because that's how unique Christian was. And made everything feel important in that way. JR mentions Gordon Soley. And then...
A little tear rolls down your eye as you hear that reference.
Yeah, I love Gordon Soley. Gordon Soley is one of the most, like... He's one of my favorite, mostly monotone-sounding human beings on this planet. Because he's the straight man for a wrestling sports show, and that's what he needed to be. Anyway.
By the way, Matt Hardy wears Under Armour underwear.
Well, that was their whole gimmick when they first started. Right? Like, wasn't that the kind of shirts they were wearing with Michael Hayes?
I'm sad that he didn't wear red underwear.
Well, he's not Roman Reigns. He's not part of the whole line. He's part of Matt Money Incorporated or whatever the fuck. But, yeah, that's a different brand of underwear altogether.
Yeah.
They do this angle where they do Jeff going to take a dive, but Matt just dodges and Jeff crashes and burns over the ring post. And Jeff landed on his feet first before he took the bump, and it looked like he could have broken his damn leg doing it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't, but it was pretty close.
And he sold the leg.
But that's a Jeff Hardy bump that he can do. Like, Jeff Hardy is one of the most unique guys in that he can make a lot of dangerous-looking shit pretty safe as long as he knows how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I did respect about this matchup in general was that the only time they took out weapons of significant consequence was for the finish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They use those steps and ring post a lot.
That's true.
But that's all stuff that you could just availably find in a wrestling arena, right? If you were kayfabe in play here, you wouldn't just randomly find a ladder laying underneath the ring. You wouldn't find 7 tables. You wouldn't find a gigantic Gatling gun-shaped kendo stick. You wouldn't find a goddamn mouse trap. So, whenever I think about wrestling, I think about, okay, what would realistically be in a ring, or under a ring that was just bare essential? why I don't mind using the steel steps or using the ring post or, using the ropes or anything like that for this whole situation, because that all fits practically into what would be around. You're using the environment around you rather than adding elements like it's a random AI generator into the ring.
And Sean, on that point, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I'm really glad that this was not just a full-on weapons brawl madness match, because we already saw that in the previous match at WrestleMania 25. If they did that again here tonight, it would have been redundant.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely.
That said, this was probably my least favorite thing on the show. Well, match.
It was... Continue.
Go ahead, Scott. No, go ahead, Scott.
This suffered a lot from the whole stipulation and microphone thing, which kind of felt like more angle than match.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also would have liked if, kind of like when they did it for any Mick Foley match they ever did in an I Quit, whether he's getting hit in the head 12 times with a steel chair, or wrestling Ric Flair in 2006 at SummerSlam over the love of Molina.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive, folks.
My biggest problem with this match, it goes back to at least they showed restraint because they didn't want to be redundant from WrestleMania 25. If they were doing like another no disqualification match with pinfalls and submissions, that would have been fine. This just turned into, I'm going to put him in this submission. And I'm going to say, hey ref, is he quitting? No? Okay. Ask him! Ask him! Ask him! And it just became that over and over and over. Submission. Ask him! No! Puts him in another hold. Over and over. And it's the Hardy Boys putting on a submission match. It got really dull.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that.
So dull, by the way, that something happened in the middle of the match. I don't know what it was, but like the fans started looking towards like the ring keeper's area.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like a fan fight or something, which
probably
can happen. And Providence, two smarks, they're probably talking about which Hardy's better. Somebody probably said Matt Hardy's better, and Jeff Hardy and this Jeff Hardy fan got all butthurt.
No, literally, there was a sign in the crowd that says, "I want Hardy to win."
Wow. What insight.
The more they stay the same.
But
at least at this point, they didn't have the restraint to say, "We want Hardy." Clap, 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 clap.
Yeah.
True.
I'll tell you one thing that
one jackass rather than a whole arena full of them.
Remember earlier in the Ricky Steamboat Chris Jericho match, I said that Jericho screaming is burned into my memory. In this match, Matt has Jeff in some kind of hold, and the referee asks him, "Do you want to quit?" And Jeff just goes as loud as he can, "No!" And and it wakes the crowd up. The crowd's like, "Whoa!" Because he like breaks the microphone with his voice. I cannot unforget that as long as I live.
Matt Hardy has a better figure four than Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Yeah.
Well, at least he remembered how to do it.
He didn't trip.
he at least understood what the mechanics of doing it was. But he does the figure four, but again, more move duplication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here, people? And again, I like the tree, I can't speak. The tree of woe wrench of the head. That was really nice. I just loved how much wrestling we were getting in this matchup. That was the thing. As much as it was broken up by the referee, it was still wrestling.
That's true.
It was an I Quit match that was mostly wrestling. I'm like, okay, I can get in on a mostly wrestling I Quit match.
I think it's just because of the reputation of the two guys in it. That's the reason why the match kind of felt weird. Like, Jeff Hardy has Matt Hardy in a clover leaf, and Matt Hardy taps out, but because it's not I Quit.
Yeah.
Isn't tapping technically quitting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of stupid.
I didn't like that at all. I wish that
was the part of the match that kind of broke me. Like, technically, that's quitting.
Well, there was more. There was more that was going to break the illusion of this matchup. Did you see the miscommunication? There were a couple of them.
Oh, that twist of fate. Good God.
Yeah, the twist of fate that Matt sold and Jeff just forgot to do. Or here's what I suspect happened. Matt and Jeff were going to line up for the twist of fate, but Matt was going to shoot Jeff off, and then Jeff was going to hit him with something.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, what happened is that Matt forgot that he wasn't actually taking a twist of fate, sold like a twist of fate, and Jeff Hardy had the overall wherewithal to hit the ropes and hit him with a leg drop.
Yeah. Jeff was like, where the Jeff had "Where the fuck did you go?" written all over his face. Matt, where's my brother? Maybe one of these days, Jeff will find his long lost brother.
Oh man, that's funny. You're so right. Because I saw Neville know that Jeff hit the ropes. He's like, "All right, I'm hitting you in the head."
Improvising.
Yeah. No, but that was at least we knew. At least I knew what was there. I was like, all right, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Brothers, and you two have been wrestling for fucking ever before you actually knew how to do it, and you still can't land shit right. That's fucking funny. That's why the Young Bucks are what they are today.
Yeah.
Come to terms with it, folks.
Except the Young Bucks have never had a match with each other that actually mattered. Like, have Nick and Matt Jackson ever wrestled against each other?
Once in TNA. And I don't remember how it went. And that's, yeah, it was, I didn't watch it. Surprise, surprise, I didn't watch it. But then we get Cole, who I think they were taking out the table or taking out some rope, and it was something like, Cole was like, I thought I saw it. I saw it right there. I thought I saw a putty tat. And
verbatim quotes.
Yeah, verbatim quote. Jeff pulls out a pre-knotted rope that conveniently fit across the table he had just pulled out. That was really illusion breaking.
Yeah.
And also reaffirms the statement that no wrestler ever has ever been a Boy Scout except Man Scout Jake Manning. They don't know how to use basic tools. Braun Strowman couldn't use a box cutter. They always have trouble with basic tying of ropes. And clearly have no idea how to tie a knot.
Bailey cannot tie together 2 kendo sticks.
Yeah, duct tape, right. Bailey can't use the duct tape. So don't put these people, we need a WWE Extreme Home Makeover.
You realize that if you did that in 2009, that would be the entire roster.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, move! That bus, they moved the bus, it's all rubble. This was up like a second ago.
The only thing that would ever make Ty Pennington just frown and cry.
Welcome to your new home. Let me show you around.
Oh, God.
By the way, where was the spot in the match where Matt Hardy had his hand broken?
I think when Jeff jumped off the ladder.
Yeah. That was the finish, and God, this finish went too long.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Sometimes WWE is like, it's time to get dramatic. And 3 years later.
Milk it.
This was #bad formatting. This went way too long. Matt talked for way too long. Daddy wouldn't like it if you did this.
And did you see the referee? The referee looked like he started tearing up when he said that.
In his best southern accent.
Yeah. Mom is dead and Daddy's sick. Don't hurt me.
Also, your dog's dead too, cause I roasted that wiener.
Oh man. That's dialogue. And then he's like, all right, fine, I quit. And Jeff's like, all right, fine, fuck you anyway. Because the fans were chanting all night. Again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We want tables.
But by the way, if you know what Matt should have said on the microphone?
What are those ropes supposed to do? Like, those are not. Matt easily could have gotten out of that situation. Literally, all you have to do is roll.
Yeah.
Roll.
You know what Matt should have said to Jeff before he jumped off? He should have said, "Since your dog Jack died in a fire, you know what you should call him now? A hot dog."
I quit.
JoshAgeddon, that's it. Get in the corner. Get in the corner.
I'm going to the corner. I'll be back.
Oh, no, you gotta come back over here, because show coming up next.
Oh, yeah.
This ends the Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy feud. I mean,
what kind of?
This was the worst match of their feud, basically.
Yeah, it wasn't the best, but I honestly don't think it was the worst either. It's still pretty good considering the standard of I Quit matches nowadays, where it's just like 2 minutes of wrestling, kendo sticks, chairs, bigger kendo sticks, bigger chairs, mousetrap, fire extinguisher.
Fires.
Jeff Hardy just came in and burped.
Yeah.
Sean hates modern wrestling so much that his lung burst mid-sentence.
That's right. That's right.
By the way...
And while I go on to the hospital, we have an Orton promo.
Wait, real quick. Did anyone notice after the match when Jeff was checking on Matt, like I hate that it came to this, he made this weird hand sign to himself, then to Matt, and then walked away. What did that mean? Did either of you catch this? He makes this weird finger sign in Matt's face and then walks away. And I'm just like, is that just Hardy and knees? I don't know.
I think it was sign language, but I didn't catch what it was.
Yeah, it must have been.
It was sign language for I fucked your mother.
And then she died.
And then Randy Orton showed up.
Can we get to the point I wanted to make, though?
Yes, please do.
So, Matt Hardy, after this, has to have a cast on his hand because he broke it.
Mm-hmm.
3 metatarsals.
Oh, yes.
I love this. That's the era of Matt I loved. I wish he had been booked better.
Yep. And then Jeff Hardy feuds against Edge, and then afterwards feuds against CM Punk. So this was the precursor to Jeff Hardy's arguably best year in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Jeff had himself a hell of a year this year. And especially that feud with Punk was so intense and really made CM Punk in a lot of ways. And this was really just the precursor to that. But you know what? The fact that the only weapons were in the finish, I do really appreciate that.
And even though
Randy Orton appears.
one last thing. Even though I said this was my least favorite match, I still thought it was fine. And then Randy Orton showed up.
And he looked into the camera and had an intense promo. And as slow-paced as Randy Orton was at this point, and always would be in his promos, he was looking into the camera. It was intense. You felt like you could believe what he was saying, or that he believed what he was saying.
And
I hear voices in my head.
And not only that, what he was saying actually kind of set up for one of the details of the finish later on in the 6-man tag.
Yes.
But we'll get to that.
We will indeed get to that. But
they come to me, they understand. They talk to me. But unfortunately, speaking of people who have to have somebody talk for them, here comes the Great Khali.
Oh, Lord. This segment.
With Rajin Singh. And from HLA to the Kiss Cam.
The Khali Kiss Cam.
The crowd went from cool to encased in ice like the acorns in Ice Age. When this happened.
And this ring was full of scat.
Yeah, well, this was a cool down. This was a glacial freeze.
Yeah.
Sub-Zero somewhere is backstage,
and
nursing his neck.
I was about to say rubbing his neck.
And so then we get this whole thing of, well, Santina, if you is a whammon, come and kiss the Khali. And Santina's like, oh no, I not kiss him. I love JR. And JR is not amused.
JR's reaction to this. Every time I watch this pay-per-view, JR's reaction fucking destroys me.
I swear to you right here, right now, JR did not know that was going to happen.
The look in his eyes.
That was a rib
fucking
and a half.
Killed me. I'm a happily married man.
Vince McMahon is laughing his ass off in the back at JR's expense.
I guarantee you,
I wonder where I heard that before.
This was straight out of Vince's mouth and on the JR's desk at that moment. And
He calls me his little slobber knocker.
Oh my god! And JR looks so. And then my favorite part was Cole said something to JR, and I forget what it was. Like, are you too happy? And JR's like, oh yeah, who fed you that line?
He was like, Mr. Barbecue Man.
Yeah.
Sassy JR is the best JR.
And then Beth Phoenix comes in, and she's like, all right, Santinu, I'm going to just take you down and beat you for your Miss WrestleMania, because that's going to show you and change your opinion. Then Khali's like, no.
Boop. He boops her.
And then it was like Fezzik jogging the memory of the albino and the Princess Bride. Beth Phoenix.
Wow.
Beth Phoenix goes up and starts yelling at him, and Khali just takes his fist and goes, bonk.
That is spellbindingly accurate.
That was such a deep cut.
That was so good.
All the piss was, and Beth Phoenix goes down. The only thing missing was the little Disney Tweety birds and the circle around her head with the stars as she Mortal Kombated her way with a lump on her head.
He bonks her and then pokes her and she falls down.
Yeah.
So stupid.
And the crowd didn't pop. They're like, oh, no. And then Cena Beth Phoenix, because of course we got to have a match, one women's match on the show, and it's Tina beating Beth Phoenix.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
2009. And then JR is still at the very end of this, and they're like, oh man, you should have told us. He's like, I'm a married man. But speaking of married men, let's go on to this world title match.
Oh my god. Okay, this whole segment was dumb as fuck, but I loved it.
Santina Marella, the dance.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then Khali rips off Santina's bra, and he's like running up the stage like, ah! Ah! So fucking dumb.
This was the stupidest thing.
It was so stupid.
This is one of the stupidest things, but it was so, like, astronomically bad that it's just, like, kind of funny.
Oh, God.
But still, the Khali bop.
That sounds like a dance, the Khali bop.
Yeah, well, that's what Santina was dancing. Before her top got ripped off. And JR was not happy.
You can see it at the desk. He was.
Now, the thing about this was that JR was not subjected to this all the time at this point. Now we get JR now, who is literally just ground down to the bone from having nonstop of this kind of stuff on his television that he has to call. And that's why JR giving absolutely zero fucks is the only redeeming quality of the announced team in AEW.
That is 100% true. God. This segment was horrible, but I loved it because it was just so stupid. But JR's reaction to the whole thing, just a billion stars.
Oh, man. Well,
can we go back to some professional wrestling, please?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go to this really interesting six-man tag with a weird stipulation. It is Triple H, Shane McMahon, and Batister versus Legacy. And the stipulation is, if Triple H, Shane McMahon, or Batister get disqualified or counted out, Randy Orton will win the world title. I say again, 09 Orton is peak Orton.
Oh, agreed. controversial opinion possibly incoming. This is my all-time favorite six-man tag team match, and this is my favorite thing on the show.
It's pretty good.
It's really good. Skyler, don't you dare. Don't you do this to me. Did you like it? Ask him!
No.
Aww.
Come on!
Come on!
This is a thing now. This is officially a thing.
This is our new gimmick.
Thanks, Chris. Chris Jericho has provided us with quite a lot of content for this channel.
That's right. That is true.
They played this video package. This video package detailing everything that Randy Orton has done to the McMahon specifically. Again, this is peak Randy Orton.
Agreed.
Punting Vince. Punting Shane. That segment where Randy Orton basically destroys Stephanie in front of Triple H, who is handcuffed to the ropes, is my favorite segment of all time.
It's Randy Orton's acting as a psychotic madman is just, it is art. He was so amazing.
And this was pre-home invasion.
Yeah, that's the one thing in the Triple H Randy Orton thing, in the Randy Orton Triple H feud, that was just kind of like, okay, that's too cheesy.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say my controversial piece, and I don't think it's that controversial, but I know JoshAgeddon disagrees. Spinner belt sucks.
Yes.
I half agree and I half disagree. When the W is spinning, yes, it sucks. When it stays stationary, I like the design.
All right, I will back that statement up with this. They have not made a good world title, or title for that matter, since.
That is true. That is true.
World title, yes. I like the design of the white strap Intercontinental belt, and I like the current Intercontinental belt.
Yeah, but the old Intercontinental belt was just the old Intercontinental belt. They'd already used it. They just went back to it because it looked good. Now they have the one belt, but I want to believe in that belt, but that belt means nothing.
Yeah.
Because it has no prestige to it. At least the other ones had some prestige to them.
Same with the U.S. title belt. Like, it has a new design, but it's on theory and whatever.
It mattered when it was on Lashley.
And I will say, when you finally make one world title belt for the WWE and Universal title belt that Roman Reigns has, I know it's going to be just another big W logo with a belt around it. Make a design. I'm over the logo belt.
Please. I know it's branding, but come on.
Yeah. Have a cool design around the logo.
Yeah. Maybe use gold.
Yeah. Not silver or bronze.
Or just something.
Yeah.
Just something better. Be better.
Ask him. Ask him.
Ask him!
Now, in this time that we've talked solely about that, I think the entrances are almost finished with this matchup.
Triple H still has to make his entrance because of the fucking belt.
Well, he made his prior to Legacy. I did like the fact, though, that part of the selling of this matchup was the fact that Batista and Shane and Hunter were all individual units, where Legacy was one self-contained.
100% agreed.
And the fact that all three of the baby faces came out as individuals and Legacy came out as one helped sell that story.
And who was in control for a lot of the match? Legacy, who was always desperately trying to get to make a tag the baby faces because they're three individuals. It worked into the psychology of the match, and I just loved it. And I loved the beginning of this match.
Well, you have to remember the angle they shot before the match began. Because, of course, the three babyfaces make their entrance. Legacy makes their entrance. We don't get a collar and elbow tie. We get a hot start, specifically Randy Orton, who gets chased to the back and takes a nap for the next 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like, where the fuck did he go?
Sort of controversial opinion. At first, when I first watched this match and Randy Orton was just gone, I was like so like mad, like, where's Randy Orton? For like 5 minutes. But when he came back, and attacked Batista when Batista least expected it, and then immediately tagged himself in after ramming his head into the ring post. I was like, oh my god, that was fucking brilliant. And I still hold that position. You may or may not agree.
But here's the thing. Kevin Dunn. You had the camera on Triple H and Randy Orton going up the entrance ramp. Then you switch back to the camera facing the ring with DiBiase and Rhodes and Batista and Shane. And we come back to the camera at the top, and Triple H has gotten rid of Randy Orton. He's coming from the back, and we're like, what happened to Randy?
Mm.
And there was no explanation.
Again, hashtag WWE bad formatting.
They could have formatted it better.
All you had to do was get a camera that went around to the gorilla, or around just like through that curtain, see Randy Orton selling, go back, have Triple H go back, you see Orton selling, that would have been fine. That would have been enough.
Or just show Randy Orton running away.
Could have taken all of 2 seconds.
But with that said,
what did Triple H do to Randy Orton?
he just chased him off. Randy Orton escaped. At least that's the way they were selling it. To me, that's my perception of it. That he ran away and escaped.
Which would not make sense because you're trying to win a world title. Why would you run away?
To sneak attack. He had enough faith in legacy to, stay alive for a couple minutes so he could watch a monitor backstage. I'm taking a few leaps, but he's watching a monitor backstage, I guess. And when he sees a moment to strike when someone's back is turned, he runs out there. It's a little contrived. But
it's contrived heavily because you are depending on Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase to not get destroyed by Batista, Triple H, and Shane McMahon, which they were for the first 5 minutes.
But
Mr. Getting, if I may, I'm glad. I just want to say thank you that I'm not the only person who does yoga of the three of us, because you're straight up stretching.
Yeah, and I will also say it's contrived, but it is such a thing Orton would do. Of course, leaves his henchmen out there to get beaten up so that he can make a sneak attack and then immediately tag himself in when his prey is wounded. It fit into Randy Orton's character that he doesn't care about Cody and Ted. He doesn't care if they get beat up. He'll come in later.
Gimmick.
You are correct. His gimmick. I will not use the C word. It fit into Randy Orton's gimmick very well. Me, yes, it's contrived, but I loved it.
Well, here's the thing. We got good hand slap tags during this whole match.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was a back slap, unless I missed it.
There was one point where Ted or Cody had Shane in a full Nelson, and he walked over to Ted and was like, "Tag me," and he tagged him on the shoulder.
No, they missed the tag, and it was so hilarious that they missed the tag.
They missed a couple tags, honestly. There was one where Cody's pinky and Ted's thumb connected. And you can tell they pretty much nearly whiffed, and then the referee was like, tag!
Close enough. Kyoto's just like, that's close enough.
Yeah. And
also, again, Cody Rhodes is a baby here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
So is DiBiase.
Shane McMahon is not nearly as swollen.
No, Shane McMahon is, 30 at this point? He looks so young.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for Triple H with a hair.
Batista with less tattoos.
Yeah, seriously. He's not part of the Illuminati yet.
Yeah,
Which is a group of otters that have nothing to do with an illegal organization that 100% doesn't exist. Wink.
And still no fucking neck tattoo.
But it was weird to have Batista be the first guy to get the heat. But when I saw how the rest of the match went out, I understand it. But it was still weird to see Batista get heat. Until Orton came out.
I feel like it would have been better if Shane was the one to get heat at first.
Yeah. And probably also to have Shane get the heat the second time. And also just maybe to have Shane do the heat and just do one comeback.
Perhaps.
We get the whole point where Batista, Shane, and Triple H destroyed the DiBiase and Rhodes until Randy Orton, surprise, surprise, comes back.
Yeah. But the Providence was into this, though. They were definitely more into this than they were most of the other stuff on the program. And then we get JR doing his best Excalibur impression when they, I think it was Orton had front face lock. And JR said, well, he's got a firm grip of that that Chancery, and what I wrote down in my notes was JR saying Chancery brought me pain. Thank you, Excalibur.
Well, that's the thing. Excalibur learned it from JR. Also, fuck Tom Brady. It's just because he has a jersey in the arena. Fuck him.
All right.
Speaking of coming from a place of pain, it's okay, Skyler. It's gonna be all right.
He won't go away.
Your 49ers will succeed. They made it further than Tom last year.
This is football, correct?
You will have. We keep asking him about retirement, and he doesn't retire.
Yes. Anyway, this didn't have anything to do with Tom Brady. I don't know why Tom Brady was brought into this equation. You're just disparaging the name of Tom Brady, and he feeds on your salty tears.
That's football, right?
This is JoshAgeddon, you ignorant slut.
Right on both counts.
Then the referee hits the chair shots. The referee hits the...
The referee gets a chair and starts whacking people.
Yoda's just done. He's done officiating. He's just hitting everybody. It's
But
WWE.
Yoda wants the WWE Championship.
Can I just say one thing real quick? One of my favorite parts of this match was the execution of moves in this match. Not the moves themselves, but the execution. Randy Orton's dropkick. Gorgeous.
Beautiful.
That draping DDT he gave Batista, especially where he was like making that weird evil face where his eyes are almost like bulging out of his head and smiling. He just dropped Batista. It looked gorgeous.
Well, the whole thing is that Randy Orton, when he inflicts pain on people, it's almost like ecstasy to him.
Yeah. And Shane McMahon delivered some gorgeous looking diving elbow drops.
Except his punches were shitty as shit.
That is true. That's the one exception.
This was pre-shadowboxing Shane, so I don't mind it.
No, this was shadowboxing Shane.
Just every move that they delivered in this match, just aside from some of Shane's punches, every move they delivered in this match looked picture perfect.
I do have to say this, though. Only one person had the best punch in this match. That is Triple H himself.
That is true. When he got Randy Orton in the corner and was just wailing on him, those punches looked so clean.
Yeah, I've always loved Triple H's punch.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention that I also loved, again, talking about Randy Orton's gimmick. I love when he had Shane in trouble outside the ring, and he started like walking up to him like he was going to do something, and Triple H walks around, and Randy Orton sees Triple H out of the corner of his eye, and he's like, whoa, and he backs off. I love little stuff like that.
The referee will stop Triple H, so that way he can do the Triple H stare bump to Shane, except Shane didn't do the Triple H stare bump.
Mm-hmm.
No, he just...
God, Randy Orton 2009 is the fucking best.
Yes, we know, but Sean, explain what happened with that Triple H stare bump.
So Shane goes to run at it, and he just keeps running. He just never stops running, and he's just like, well, the stairs will stop me, but he doesn't really hit the stairs. Like, he like very lightly hit the stairs, so it made no impact, and you couldn't hear it. It wasn't like when Foley did it, where he'd take his whole leg and just, like, side chuck it.
He'd give the steel steps a Kinshasa.
Yeah, he just, like, completely lands it and just doesn't front flip over.
He jumps over the stairs.
Yeah.
It was, but anyway, so that was another part of that. And then what I really like is the finish of this match.
The finish of this match was orgasmic.
The finish was great, if only the timekeeper remembered when to ring the bell.
Yeah, that is true.
Yes and no, because it added to the
It
match.
did add to it, though.
It added to the confusion, I suppose, but it still felt kind of out of place.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so what happens is Cody and I believe it was it Shane?
Yes, it was Shane.
Yeah, Cody and Shane are fighting on the outside. Cody gets a chair, wham to Shane O'Mac twice. Referee doesn't see it. Then Triple H goes in, and I forget how this sequence all finished up in the order that it finished. I
remember. Let me go through it. Okay, so Cody hits Shane with the chair, and then Batista runs at him, and Cody juds out the chair like a javelin into Batista's throat and jaw.
Right.
So he goes over. Meanwhile, in the ring, Triple H has a spine buster and is setting up for the pedigree. So Cody has the chair and he's walking up, and it's like he's like waiting for Batista to grab it because he's like, maybe I can get a DQ to give Randy Orton the title out of this. And it almost works. Batista grabs the chair and he raises it above his head as the referee turns around and Triple H sees it too. So he releases the pedigree, runs over and yoinks the chair because he's like, no, dude, I have it. I've got it. Don't do that. I'll lose the title. Turns around. Ted DiBiase throws Batista face first into the ring post. Randy Orton hits an RKO. 1, 2, kick out. Bell rings. Randy Orton's like, oh my god, I can't believe he kicked out. Wait, he's in perfect position. A grotesque looking punt to the skull. 1, 2, 3, it's over.
The only thing is that, is the punt a legal move at this point, or is it illegal?
No, it's legal.
Then why did Randy Orton do the punt while the referee was distracted?
I don't think he did.
It's one of those WWE-isms where we're going to have management inflict.
Oh, because the referee was yelling at the timekeeper, I think.
Well,
what?
He was talking to Batista. He
Or
turned over
something.
to Batista again for I don't know what reason.
I don't think it was to show that the punt was illegal. I think he just happened to turn his back when that happened.
I'm curious
I
about
understand both sides to that.
Because again, this is the point where they stopped doing the chair shot headshots, and I think it was also the point where they're phasing out the punts.
Well, Randy Orton punts Ric Flair on Raw a couple weeks later, so.
Yeah, like, I think this was like, okay, Randy, you're going to get to use the punt a few more times in 2009, but by 2010, you got to stop.
In 2010, he did it to Chris Jericho on Raw. In 2011, he did it to Sheamus on SmackDown.
But it was way less frequent.
Then it became way less frequent.
Never was able to hit it.
Yeah.
And they also sold it a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the time that they stayed out and came back in. So that was... I kind of wish that they never did that to the punt, which is why I had, in ACPW, you should watch our ACPW versus NWO programs, everybody.
Like, comment, and subscribe to the Court Martial Podcast.
Exactly.
Where you took the angle of Titus O'Neil being wheeled out, and Triple H got stretchered.
Yeah. He got wheeled out, and then Orton got suspended for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually hasn't been back.
And another thing that I loved about this finish, everyone's reaction, like the aftermath. Like, Randy Orton he doesn't celebrate. He grabs the title, gets his boys, and they leave as quick as possible. Because he's like... They're out. Like, he's like such a dastardly villain that he knows what he did was disgusting and he doesn't want anyone... He's running away because he doesn't want anyone to yell at him. He has his prize, he has what he came for, he got his revenge, and he's out. Meanwhile, say what you want to about WWE formatting and Kevin Dunn. I love that when they cut from Randy Orton to the ring, the first thing you see is Batista, like, bowing with his head in his hands like he's weeping because his friend just died. I loved that.
Yeah, and honestly, the way that they reacted the entire time that Triple H was getting put on the stretcher and being tended to, all of that was really well done by both Batista and Shane, but... Mm-hmm. This is the part where I started getting annoyed with Providence.
No.
Yeah.
Hey. Goodbye.
Here's the thing. I made a comment a little bit earlier in this podcast about Shawn Michaels. Mm-hmm. And about how at this time, a lot more people were using the internet. A lot more people were getting information on the internet about the kinds of people that these individuals were. And a lot of these people still had Triple H's reign of terror on their minds. Mm-hmm. So, and considering how much, unfortunately, Triple H and Orton was a stinker of a match at 25.
Yeah.
I wanted to like it so badly, but just like every other Triple H main event at Mania, it just didn't work.
And also got overshadowed by a match that happened earlier.
Yeah.
But this is how people felt about Hunter pre-NXT. And that never went away, no matter how many times he came back and tried to be one thing or another. Really, it took NXT for people to genuinely like and support Hunter again.
That is true.
And
I mean, Triple H at this point was almost getting go-away heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really was. And so that's why I think a portion of this audience was happy to see him go. And now I have another point, and this is something that disappoints me badly. So, Cole and JR and King are obviously selling this situation that it's really serious, and King goes, JR, how long was Batista out? 4 months. And then Cole says, oh yeah, well Shane got punted and he was out for several months as well. Then I thought about it.
Yep. I know where you're going with this.
Shane was out in February with the punt.
And Batista was out in December.
Shane came back in what?
Half the time that Batista did.
No, this was May.
Yeah, but he came back to sell the show in May, in late April.
Mm-hmm.
So that says that Batista, of his size, needed 4 months to recover from a punt, when Shane McMahon only needed 2.
Sean, it's even worse than that. Vince McMahon was punted 1 month after Batista came back, and Vince McMahon came back to TV before Batista did. Vince.
Okay, are you ready for my really stupid thing?
Yes. Always.
Because Batista is a regular wrestler, he has to undergo drug testing. But because Shane and Vince are not, they don't have to deal with drug testing, so you pump in all the steroids you need.
And also, Batista's just wicked injury prone.
Yeah.
But hey, he's a genetic jackhammer, damn it.
He's the Leviathan.
With great fruits of steel for the amount of cycles he's
And a former deacon.
But again,
that was not where I expected this podcast to go.
there's also another issue with this particular angle. I loved it, and then they did the same thing in the main event.
There's one... Kind of, but there's... Well, when we get to it, I'll get to why I like that there were 2 stretcher angles on this show.
But again, it's the thing where, like, they did the WWE ref bump in both matches at Unforgiven 2002.
Mm-hmm.
They did the ref bump in 04.
They did 7 ref bumps in Unforgiven 2002. During the same match.
They have to do all the copy-paste stuff. I hate it. It's a little bit lazy.
I don't necessarily agree with that. On this night, on Backlash 2009.
On this day,
I see clearly.
Clearly.
Speaking of which,
Copying their shit.
but one more point before we move on to the main event. Another reason why this was my favorite thing on the show. The first time I watched this DVD was back when I first started watching wrestling, Randy Orton was my favorite. I just started watching. I was like in late middle school, early high school. Randy Orton was like the coolest person I'd ever seen. RK was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I figured out how like he got screwed over by Triple H back in like 2004. So I was like, man, I hope one day he gets revenge on Triple H. And then, again, I didn't have a lot of access to the internet. But then I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. And I found out this DVD, Backlash 2009, that I got. I can't remember how I got Backlash 2009 on DVD. I think my mom bought it for me. And I saw Randy Orton.
Did your mom buy it for you?
Yes! Yes, she gave it to me while I was wearing a binky. Anyway, so I had no idea.
So I don't know why you were using it.
I still have it for other reasons. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, when I first watched this DVD, I so badly wanted Randy Orton to win and get one over on the guy that screwed him. Because, again, I didn't know all that much about wrestling, but Randy was my favorite. And when I first watched this...
Cheer for the heel.
Yeah, when I first watched this, and Randy Orton won, I fucking celebrated like crazy. I was so happy. And I will never forget my first like big Randy Orton won a match celebration that I had.
And on that day, another Smark was born.
Yes.
And you know, whenever Randy Orton gets a win, another Smark gains its Mountain Dew and neckbeard.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, do you think you know me? Do you think you know me?
Well, I'll tell you what. It is Edge who is not Pepsi. In a last man standing match. I thought it was weird that the vignette had zero Cena promo in it.
That is, yeah.
It was all Edge, just explaining what was going on.
I love the intensity of his delivery at the very end of it, because he just sounded like it sounded like his brain was exploding.
One of my favorite segments with Edge and Cena of all time actually happened in the SmackDown leading up to this match, when they had that the cutting edge with John Cena on it, and Edge just basically goes, "I hate you.
Yeah.
I hate everything you are. I hate everything you stand for. My life has been hell since you and I ever first came into contact with each other." And John Cena's like, "Fight me, bitch. I'll do it right now."
Yeah, that is a great promo.
It's one of my favorite 9 minutes of SmackDown ever.
Dare I say it was pretty cutting edge.
It worked. But we have this matchup. It is a last man standing. Did we get a collar and elbow tie-up?
Yes.
Yes, we did. They saved it for the main event, is what I'm telling myself.
And
okay, hold on. Let's step back a second. Okay?
I'm sitting down, so I'm gonna scoot back.
We're gonna sit down cross-legged and cut a pipe bomb promo because that's who is being chanted here.
I'm actually cross-legged right now, so you're not wrong.
Okay, first things first.
Also, it's called crisscross applesauce. Continue.
Ignoring that, this is my favorite world title design.
Yeah, big gold belt's banging.
The big gold belt is amazing.
And secondly, this is my favorite John Cena shirt.
HLR, if you take the bottom off, looks shockingly similar to HLA.
And you know John Cena loves some hot lesbian action.
Full match.
And Pepsi. He loves covering lesbians in Pepsi.
I mean...
So we get some Cena.
Did you see the sign in the crowd? Give me 12 rounds of John Cena.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, you think you know me? Hey, you think you know me?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know anymore, Skyler. Who the hell are you?
Ask him! There's only one way to find out who he is. Ask him!
Come on!
Come on!
So
this pay-per-view is devolving so bad.
well, Cena and Edge. Cena was like getting cheered like half and half, like always.
Mm-hmm.
Providence was very smarky. What did you guys think overall of the matchup itself?
I really liked it. I felt like it was a solid main event, and I loved how they didn't immediately start with weapons. They kind of slowly built to that. But I loved this collar and elbow because did you notice before they touched, Edge said one last time, and John Cena was like one last time, and then they locked up. Even though this is a blood feud, and they've been feuding forever, this felt like the last chapter, and it felt right that they would start with a collar and elbow tie-up. I just felt thematically it was appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's what Jeff and Matt Hardy should have done.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there was in that thing though, there was something missing in this match. I don't know what it is, but there's something missing. Again, the word that is apropos, especially because these two guys grew up in that era, there was no ruthless aggression. There was no intensity. There was just... This felt sterile.
It took a minute for it to get going.
That was my biggest problem with the match. Is this match was kind of the revelation for me of like this show was very WWE brand cleaning agent.
Yep, I will agree with that.
It just I couldn't get into this as much as I wanted to. I think on that basis, it just felt... And, you know, I love Charles Robinson, but I honestly feel like Charles Robinson is part of that. Because he was the referee voice of WWE cleanliness and angles. And he's also Alfred. And it's just this whole situation where it just felt like, because we had seen so many matches with Edge and Cena, and I'm not necessarily saying it's either of their fault, I think it's just the way that it was formatted. And this was the sign of what was to come for the next 10 years, probably 15 years, once we get to 2024.
The thing about it is that these guys, we had seen them in blood fights. We'd seen them. I mean, that Elimination Chamber thing is still bloody and gory as hell. The cash-in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The fact that there was no blood and there was no, like, I don't know. Again, the match lacked. This also kind of felt like they were trying to sterilize because they knew they were going to get in trouble. I mean, I hate to be the elephant in the room again, but the Chris Benoit thing was looming over this match. Yeah.
Well, until John Cena yucked the steel steps right into Edge's forehead.
But that's a safer bump than hitting someone in the head.
True.
With the chair.
True.
I also have to say, Cena did it better with Umaga than he did it here.
Yeah.
And part of that was that he used the upper half of the stairs, not the lower half, which they could never wield right. John Cena trying 6 times to get that thing up and over the top rope was just embarrassing.
Yeah.
And there was also another weird thing that happened before that. First of all, one person doing a flapjack just still makes no sense.
I knew you were going to say something about that.
Doing like a belly flop, and Edge just caught a leg. I don't necessarily think that is. It's just weird to me. Then
what's also weird to me is seeing Edge young and seeing John Cena with hair.
Yeah. Well, with good hair at least. Edge doing a sleeper, and this was a weird thing, right? Edge gets that sleeper, John Cena almost passes out, or basically does pass out. Edge flops him to the ground, and then Cena just has this weird, like, Terminator Hulk up. Like, I'm not selling you sleeper. And he just randomly wakes the fuck up. Like, there was no time to let that register. And it just kind of devalued the whole sleeper in the first place. And then Edge hits a terrible sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Sharpshooter hurts.
He did his best Rock sharpshooter impersonation.
Yeah, and it wasn't that good at that.
Yeah, and he's Canadian, so it hurts even more.
Yeah. And then the ghost of Triple H returns to haunt the bodies of the living.
Yeah. They both took step bumps.
Yeah. 2 Triple H stair bumps. Lots of stairs tonight between Matt and Jeff, and the matchup with the 6-man tag and this. There were quite a lot of stairs being tossed around.
Triple H booked this show?
I wonder if Triple H was angry backstage, like, I'm the only one that gets to use the stair bump. Why the hell is everyone else doing this shit?
Well, it wasn't enough to make much of a difference Edge-wise, because Edge is not Pepsi.
He's only Mr. Pibb.
That's right. Oh no, that's a knock.
And that's what it said.
He's RC. Yeah.
Wow. We're going off-brand, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Just a quick side story. I had never drinking Mr. Pibb in my entire life until I got to college. I saw it in the cafeteria. I'm like, what the hell is this drink? I had it. I'm like, this is good, but it also kind of tastes like Coke.
Well, that's Edge.
Yeah. You drank Edge.
I mean, that's in a way that's kind of what it feels like, because like Edge is good, but I'm like, you're not Bret Hart, man.
Yeah, and then we get, we do stair toss to the outside. Then we get the 1-2, the back and forth, but Cena's getting booed and Edge is getting cheered.
Yeah.
Again, smart and prominent.
Again, this is the whole thing of John Cena had go-away heat.
Mm-hmm.
It got worse in 2010 and 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, him single-handedly beating the Nexus was really, I think, the turning point.
Yeah.
Now, people didn't care now. They were obviously done with John. And it was especially evidenced by the super attitude adjustment.
I forgot he did this at this time. I'm just like, oh, so he's been doing this for longer than I thought.
Yeah, he has. And then it spills out to the outside. And why don't you guys take over the recounting of this?
Okay, so All right, so he gives John Cena the spear. John Cena gets up. Super AA, Edge barely gets up. He tries to go for the leg drop, gets speared in midair. John Cena rolls to the outside to get up. So then they go on the announce table, and I actually really like the spot. John Cena gives Edge an attitude adjustment to a bunch of plants in the audience, which we all know that they weren't real fans, but it was still a cool visual. Although I'm like, they caught Edge. How did that hurt him?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious who those plants were.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that they looked so good because did they water them throughout the show?
Well, I mean, it depends. Were they in the full sun? Did they have at least 6 hours of direct sunlight? Did they get filtered sun? Don't start me on this. This is my occupation now we're talking about.
Triple H should have been... Wait, listen. Triple H should have been on that side of the ring, so when he spits, he should have spat on all those plants to give them their nutrients and water.
Speaking of which, by the way, John Cena gives the AA to Edge on top of people who are wearing his own shirts.
Yeah.
They spit on him.
And also, it's kind of weird seeing chairs with Backlash with Randy Orton's face on the bottom of them.
Yeah.
That was when they were... That was at a time when WWE chairs had gone berserk. They were the most ridiculous-looking things on the planet.
They had very wide title belts.
Yeah, they had all sorts of logos and things, and they were charging, like, some ridiculous amount of money for just a steel folding chair with some airbrush on it.
Yeah.
And, anyway.
But anyway, so then they start fighting throughout the arena. They go into the back room. They fight out in the concourse area. And then they find...
They go to the concourse area. I'm like, how are you ensuring that no fans actually attack Edge or John Cena?
They ran through it super fast, so they weren't there that long, but I assume they had security.
Well, and also...
Props to the one guy in the red shirt who's following both of them, has to grab his camera out to take pictures and touch John Cena one more time, like, I was there.
I got his sweat on my hand.
It's interesting. That's an interesting point, though, Scott, that you make, because I think at this point, WWE had kind of recognized that it had also sterilized its fans, and that they were not going to be the violent bunch that really had a feud between, like, really disliked Edge or really disliked John Cena.
Yeah, that is also true.
To hit them. I think that they knew that they were fine. No one was going to do shit.
Well, there was not any of that threat. There was the threat of women grabbing John Cena because, boy, those abs.
Those chest muscles.
Yes.
John Cena's tits.
I'm sorry,
I couldn't... tits or Edge's hair. Oh, God damn it, Sean. Ow!
What? You milk John Cena? Pepsi comes out of his nipples.
Damn it, Joshua.
Edge does not like it, because Edge is not Pepsi.
Mr. Pibb comes out of his nipples.
Oh, good gravy.
This is how you know we lost it, because we've been doing this review for 2.5 hours.
Then we get to the finish.
Yeah, so they fight out, and they're on the ramp, and I actually like the bulldog from the steps onto that metal box that they were on. I like that bulldog. And then he hits him with a construction helmet. Why was there a construction helmet there?
Well, it's the pyro area, so you can imagine that they were building the set, and that was probably left over.
But now they're on the stage, and I loved the execution DDT on the stage. That looked gruesome. And then he gives him the concerto. That's Sean's favorite thing to do with a chair. It's not completely overplayed.
Edge runs backstage to grab a chair. I'm just like, the first thing you grab is a chair?
Yeah. And my favorite thing in this whole match, when John Cena's getting up from the concerto, the look on Edge's face. He looks so pissed, and he's so mad that he's clenching his fists and ripping the stage behind him because he's so freaking pissed that he can't keep John Cena down. Edge selling John Cena getting up again was phenomenal. And then Big Show.
And, okay. Here's the thing. It was very obvious that spotlight had not been used up to that point. It was very clear. It was almost like, why was it there if it wasn't being used to light up the actual show? And the reason is because John Cena's back would have melted if it actually had. Now, that's where I have the biggest problem with this. Because Big Show chokeslams John Cena into this spotlight, and then the referee counts to 10, and Edge wins the world title. It was very obvious this was a stunt because they did the same sparklers and the spark things in the back. It's not how it would work. The light would just go out. It wouldn't just explode. It would randomly explode mechanically. That's not how a light works.
Not to mention John Cena would be bloody as hell going into the glass.
Into the glass, and then it'd actually be like his skin had third-degree burns, where they'd probably have to cut it off. Those lamps get so unbelievably hot. He would be literally pork rinded. And that's not what you want, especially that smell permeating the arena. All right, good night, folks. Here's a burnt flesh John Cena. You want to boo him? Fine. We're going to burn it.
Really warm, hot Pepsi.
Yeah. No.
Well, John Cena would just be like the Fiend. He would be reborn from the ashes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
John Cena should have become the Fiend at this point.
You know what? Then that Firefly Funhouse would have actually made a lick of sense.
Then John Cena has a Pepsi doll.
Yes. Oh, God.
Speaking of making sense, Edge is the new World Heavyweight Champion, and the referees and backstage crew come out, and then here comes Christian and Shag Gaspar?
And CM Punk.
No, I didn't see CM Punk.
CM Punk did come out. He just had his hair in a hat.
It was the baby faces.
Oh, yeah, Kofi Kingston came out there, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, they're coming to pay their respects.
Michael Cole starts crying for some reason on commentary.
Yep, that's what he does. And so that was the end of it, and then Cena gets the stretcher job.
Controversial opinion. I know that Sean does not like it, and your reasons for not liking the finish of the match make sense. Me, I really love the spectacle of it. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but me personally, the spectacle of it is enough for me to forgive it.
I wish that Christian would have more of an interaction with Edge. I know he was a bit player, but...
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if Christian was ready for that yet, honestly. To be put on I mean, they would have done wonders for him at that time, but I don't know if he was ready for that. And that sounds kind of weird considering how late it was in Christian's career, but it's the weird thing with Christian. The one thing that also didn't make sense about this is that they do the big explosion, right, with the whole poo-poo that they definitely set up. And then these three guys come in from the back and spray the fire extinguisher on the back of the light.
Yeah.
What a point where they should be actually, like, trying to cool John Cena off so he doesn't get major third-degree burns, which would have made more sense. But instead, they're like, oh, here's this clearly not smoking Edge.
Well, it was the fire that was happening behind.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I bet.
And another thing, real quick, John Cena's selling of this when they were pulling him out, like he was like shaking. Again, a lot of people, including me, have criticized John Cena's selling. In my opinion, he sold this very well.
He did. And then that's all credit in the world to John for making it work. It's like, again, this isn't Cena's fault.
Yeah.
This isn't Big Show's fault. This isn't Edge's fault. It's Vicky's fault, really, kayfabe.
Yeah.
But in any case,
by the way, they got a lot of work out of those paramedics, which, by the way, kind of looked like Big Boss Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big Boss Man. Big Boss Man.
We've been recording for too long.
I want you to stand in the corner and think about what you just said.
That's me.
No, I will not. But anyway, so that's the show. So let's get to ratings.
Well, real quick before that, I mentioned earlier that I said that I would mention why I didn't mind them doing stretchers twice.
At least you don't mind the double stretcher.
The reason why is because the theme of this show is Fallout from WrestleMania, Backlash. This show, like, 2 people got kayfabe really badly injured on Backlash, so it did feel like a backlash to what happened at WrestleMania. The people that won at WrestleMania really badly got hurt on this night. So that, from that perspective, I really liked it.
I understand that. I definitely can see that perspective for it. I mean, I don't really mind the double stretcher job. That's not really my issue on this.
Mm.
It was this. There really wasn't anything wrong with like the overall structure of this show, seeing how there weren't that many matches on it,
Mm-hmm.
and selling the punt and selling somebody getting thrown through a light fixture is kind of two different kinds of sells.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like they're still different in their own way. So I don't really mind the fact that there's two stretcher jobs in this, considering that it was two different scenarios that encountered it, and one of them was meant to elevate elevate Randy Orton and elevate the punt. I don't know why that came out as Punk, but that's
because you saw CM Punk with John Cena, and you were like, "I'm gonna feud with you in a few years."
Yeah, and little did we know how that would all turn out. But in any case, I don't really mind it so much in where it could have been. I think that my bigger issue with this in general was just the formatting, the feeling of this show. That's what got to me, and really that's I think what took away from the light fixture in the first place. You know, in this that while these two were good, just the overall lack of intensity on the show didn't sell me into truly believing in the light stunt. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I totally get your point. I 100% get your point that storyline-wise, it checks out.
Yeah.
But from a vibe perspective of like what you want in wrestling, it was good. This was good. Everything on it was good, but there was still just that je ne sais quoi, that feeling of just grit and you know, bitterness of enemies. Just it, as good as this was, it just didn't have that same sting.
And I kind of agree with that.
I think the biggest difference again is, let's go back 5 years to that Eddie Guerrero and Brock Lesnar match. Both of them did not like each other. You knew they did not like each other.
Yeah.
John Cena and Edge are supposed to have a blood feud, and the match felt sterile. It felt lacking that passion or energy that Eddie and Brock had. And that's no knock on John and Edge, because of course they had feuds before. And
yeah, if you want to see a no DQ stip match between John Cena and Edge that gets brutal, they had a brutal steel cage match. They had a fantastic TLC match.
That, by the way, that TLC match had no blood in it.
That is true. But it was
fact, and you know why it didn't have any blood in it?
Because of the Hell in a Cell match before.
Because of the Hell in a Cell match right before it. And they didn't want to go too ham sandwich on it, and I think that was a smart move.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that brings up the point, is that we had seen John Cena and Edge wrestle before, and again, the overall change in perception of WWE, and specifically John Cena, because again, we're talking about a smarky fan base that didn't love John Cena, and liked Edge a little bit more. It's the whole thing of the times were changing, the fans were changing, WWE was changing, there was the transition into PG era. As much as we like things from PG era, it's inferior wrestling to what we had gotten before.
That is true.
Could you imagine if Edge wins the world title from Roman Reigns and holds that title as part of his Dark Force Legion Judgment Day Curse Upon You, not House of Black, but a totally House of Black gimmick, and keeps that world title until the Royal Rumble? And then entrant number 29 is John Cena. And he throws over, I don't know, Cody Rhodes to win the Royal Rumble, to go on to face Edge for the WWE Championship at Hollywood to win his 17th world title. On the same night, you have The Rock and Roman Reigns.
Can we get to the show ratings? Because I'm done.
When does Goldberg come back?
Where's Hulk Hogan?
Hulk Hogan is not a part of this show.
Ask him.
Ask him!
Part of the show.
Where's Hulk Hogan?
Hulk's in his beach, probably getting hammered and saying brother a lot. But in any case, let's get, like Skyler said, let's get to the ratings. And Skyler, seeing how you're eager, why don't you go first?
I'm just gonna say right now, fuck you, Joshua, for giving WrestleMania Backlash a 6 out of 10.
That was a good show. I stand by that grade.
A good show.
I disagree.
It was a boring, nothing happening show. This show had 3 world title changes on it, technically.
This Backlash was better than WrestleMania Backlash.
Which proves my point, is that modern wrestling is not what it once used to be. And Josh, again, you need to change your scores. Fuck you.
I'm not changing my score. I stand by it.
This was a better show, but was it better than Unforgiven? No.
No.
That's the thing, is that I don't want to give it a better score because I don't think it deserved it. Like, this was a good show, but, like, again, it lacked that intensity and passion that other pay-per-views and other matches had. That's why I gotta give it a 6. Honestly, it's tough. I want to like it more. And there was legitimately great stuff, but I can't give it more than a 6.
I understand. JoshAgeddon, your turn.
This was my pick for this review. And again, this is not my all-time favorite pay-per-view. My favorite pay-per-view of all time is WrestleMania 19, which I assume we will review at some point. But this show is my favorite Backlash pay-per-view. I have a lot of nostalgia for this pay-per-view. This is one of the first times my favorite wrestler at the time won a world title, so I have a very special memories of this pay-per-view. I have it on DVD. It's not the greatest thing ever. It's not the best show ever. It doesn't have the best wrestling, but I still think it's very solid. There are some things that aren't that great, but even the stuff like Santina made me laugh because of Jim Ross's reaction. All in all, I still love this show. I'm giving it a solid 8.5 out of 10.
Fair enough.
That's a really generous score.
I love this show, and I will admit a lot of it is nostalgia.
Nostalgia adds a 2.5-point curve. That's just how it goes. It's a full quarter of the entire ratings. You get 1 full star out of 4 stars for doing that. Unless you're in the Tokyo Dome, in which case you get 12. But I actually have to I'm more inclined just because we watched Unforgiven the last time, and Unforgiven was that same kind of nostalgia for me as this show is to you, JoshAgeddon. So I know that I graded that one on a curve just because I love everything about it to this day. And most of it held up, although HLA was, oh boy, cringe. I have to say that this show, everything on it was good. But it was just good. It was a good show. It was a fine show. It was a dandy show. It was a dandelion. And I plucked it and I went...
And the WWE title was won by Dandy Orton.
Yes, that's right, Dandy Orton. I found out who is not sponsored by major companies. Although, by the way, I did see Edge act in Vikings recently. And I gotta say, he's pretty solid as an actor. I gotta give him credit for that too. And that was also evidenced by that previous... by the previous package that we got prior to the matchup. But not in the promo.
Yeah, I was thinking, what about that promo, though?
But, in any case, I'm more inclined to agree with Sky, though. It's just, it lacked something. It lacked the grit. I think, now that you mentioned the HD, that was probably a big part of it. I think Michael Cole was a big part of it. Because it felt like you now had the mouthpiece from the back. And that was what Michael Cole was there to do. He was there to be Vince McMahon on commentary without Vince McMahon being on commentary. And that's all he's ever been since. And you tease JR and King and then you add Michael Cole. And that's really what that was. And that's why I think that it hurt it for me in that same way. Everything on this was good. It was a good show. It may not have been a great show for anything that was there. There was the big show, and with all that in mind, I think I'm gonna have to agree with Sky. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 as well.
So I am the outlier here.
But nostalgia is a 2.5 point curve. So really, you gave it the same grade, but you have nostalgia points attached to it.
Sure.
So with that in mind, the next event that I get to pick is our pay-per-view that we review in June. That's a classic, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The nearest WWE pay-per-view to that would be Money in the Bank. And I already know which pay-per-view we're going to review.
Oh, boy.
Money in the Bank 2013, including the pre-show match.
Oh.
You swerved me a little. Yeah, you had
me there. I definitely was thinking something else.
What, were you thinking Money in the Bank 2011?
Yes.
Perhaps.
I thought about it, but I think that show doesn't age as well as it should.
I agree 100%.
There was really only one good match on the show.
There were two.
Yeah, there was one.
I liked 3 matches on that show.
But 2013 Money in the Bank is arguably one of my favorite pay-per-views. So if we're going to review a show, we might as well review that one.
Sounds good.
All right, folks. You've heard it here, so the only way you're going to find our show, that review of that show, is at the end of June. And the only way you're going to know exactly when we drop it is if you like, you share, you subscribe, and you hit that bell button and you switch it to all. Fuck personalized. Personalized doesn't do jack. Personalized just means that you've liked it. That's literally it. So switch it to all, and when you switch it to all, the second that we post something up, it's going to go bing, notification, number 1, you hit that bell, and it goes, we're here! When we're here to party. And we will be here to party in June for that. Folks, JoshAgeddon, Sky, it has been wonderful reviewing this show. It has gone on for a very long time.
That is true.
So long that we have to ask him.
Ask him! Ask him! Yeah!
Come on, guys. You stop it there.
Ask him. Ask him.
Folks, it is time to take our first commercial break. Mercifully, our sponsors are going to take a hold of this and pass the buck. But, JoshAgeddon, thank you very much for this Sign cast.
No problem.
Skyler, thank you very much for this, you showing up as a co-host as always.
Thank you.
And I will see both of you another time. Skyler next week, JoshAgeddon whenever I feel like it. And I will see you folks right after this.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the Totally Awesome Podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Good night, everybody.
Read to you, and I'm not going to record it, but I'm going to read to you. If you want to record it, JoshAgeddon, you can.
I already pressed record.
Oh, right. Wonderful. So, I'm going to read to you a story. And what this story is, once I bring it up, is a Star Wars saga.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen still listening, this is a bonus feature to this podcast episode.
Yes.
I'm going to regret this, aren't I?
It goes places.
No. You're going to have yourself a great time.
It's going to be beautiful.
It is going to be just precious.
This will be so good you'll have to ask him.
No, I'm getting lower because it's 10 o'clock Eastern time, and I don't want to anger my mother. So,
okay, man, Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, if you make her upset, you should ask her. Ask her.
I will. All right. Are you ready for this adventure, Skyler? Now, this is coming from an app called AI Dungeon, where basically you type in a scenario, and then the AI will actually add layers to the story with you, and you can continue with actions you can take, or you could say a certain thing, or you could just add to the story. So this is a Star Wars saga called Star Wars Acid Trip. Are you ready, Skyler?
I'm not.
Good. You are Anakin Skywalker teaching a first grade class how to wield a lightsaber. You introduce yourself when one of the students raises their hand to ask a question. She says, "Mr. Skywalker, you are a Jedi Knight, aren't you?" "Well, yes," you begin to reply when she cuts in with her next question. "Are you the ones that killed all the kindergartners?" she asked the class, her voice trembling with fear. "Of course not. We didn't do that. We only protect people from people like you," one of the students replies. The girl raises her hand for a third time. You cut it off. The children are all trembling with fear. You dismiss them with a wave of your hand and send them back to their desks. You misjudge the hand wave and shoot electricity at all the students. As the children run out of the room, you realize you made a mistake. You should have pointed your finger at them and shouted, "Yes, I am the one who killed all the kindergartners." You say, "Oh, jinkies, not again." "You need to stop saying that," someone says from behind you. It is a short, bald man with a beard. He looks like an old friend. It is him, you realize, holding a blaster rifle. You say, "What the fuck are you doing here, Obi-Wan?" "It's not what you think," he says nervously. "Where did you get that ridiculous outfit?" you ask, trying to figure out how you can escape this conversation without getting your head blown off. You use the Force to take his blaster. You use the Force, pushing the man backwards and taking his gun. You put the gun to your head and pull the trigger. You smile. Confetti lightly grazes your head as it comes out of the gun. Obi-Wan laughs and pulls out a lightsaber shaped like a double-sided dildo.
What the fuck is this?
Hello there.
You say, "I'm not using that again. Remember what happened last time?"
This time we will do it together.
"Oh, come on. That was a long time ago," he says. "We have bigger fish to fry." "Bigger fish to fry, you say? We blew up the first fucking starship that landed on this planet." Obi-Wan says, "I will blow you instead." You get wildly uncomfortable.
At one time, Obi-Wan was voiced by me.
No.
What is this shit?
Oh, just wait. It gets better.
It gets so much worse.
I hate to say it, but I think you're right. Let's blow this pop gun of a planet up. You and Obi-Wan leave the room when Emperor Palpatine walks in with two hookers.
What is this, the hood?
You stare quizzically until he says, "Chewie, you have a little bit of work to do." Chewie was Palpatine's pet name for you. You froth at the loins and he whips out his dick.
Shriveled up Palpy dick.
"I need you to get over here and fuck one of these sluts. Then I need you to grab her head and pull her hair so hard that it breaks clean off. Got it?" Obi-Wan ignites his lightsaber, but the hooker steals it. You walk toward the other hooker and realize it's Padme, the mother of your son. She looks so incredibly beautiful that you can't help but stop. "Let's get this over with," you mumble. You heard the man. You fuck Padme so hard that when you pull her hair, her head comes clean off. What are you guys doing?
Hang on.
Just pulled Padme's head clean off.
Skyler needs a minute.
Skyler needs a minute.
Folks, this hasn't even started.
The headless corpse of Padme.
Oh. So, Skyler, you ready?
Okay, sorry, I had to answer a question.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. All right. Just to recap, you fuck Padme so hard that when you pull her hair, her head comes clean off.
Thank you for recapping that.
You're welcome. You step between the two. Chewie, you stay back. Padme, you stay back too. He grips her head tightly and raises the lightsaber to begin carving his way down her face to her chin. You look at Palpatine and he grins. A tooth falls out his mouth and falls at your feet. You pick it up with the Force and stick it in Padme's nose. Now that wasn't so hard, was it? You stand back and admire your work. Padme looks confused and infuriated.
She's dead! You pulled her head off!
Obi-Wan is left with the other hooker. Palpatine opens up a box to reveal a shiny chrome dome. Welcome to the Death Star, my dear, he says as he slides it on her forehead. The Emperor will be so pleased, even though he is the Emperor. You karate kick the helmet off Padme's head. You pull the helmet off Padme's head. Palpatine's dome is broken and Palpatine is dead. The Emperor has been dead for years. You scream loud and there is no response. You say, the Empire belongs to us now, Padme. You lift Padme up in the air and smash her hard against the wall. The dome falls off and Palpatine's head rolls to the floor. There is no response from her. She is dead. You say, well, shit. You drop her and run towards the door. A huge explosion rips through the room and destroys the door. You climb on top of a desk and stare through the cloud of smoke and dust. Obi-Wan's hooker ignites his lightsaber. She throws his severed head across the room towards the blackboard. She stares at you with a crazed maniac look in her eye. You pull your lightsaber out of your belt and she comes at you. You flick your lightsaber on and she disappears before your eyes. You say, what the fuck is happening? Am I just straight tripping? You pull out your comm link and dial the emergency frequency. There's no response. You try and try again, but it's no use. The entire planet has been destroyed. You board your ship and fly to Kashyyyk. A Wookiee meets you when you land. Welcome back, my friend, he says. Where were you? You walked through the halls of the ship. A metal tube shaped like a giant metal tube.
Description 100.
You say, hey Terrence, I just had the craziest LSD trip and destroyed a planet. You been okay? Yeah, he says. I can't stop thinking about the princess, though. I need to find a way to get back to her. The princess? Yeah, did you see her up there? You say, Padme's dead. I karate kicked the helmet off her and she died. That's no way to treat a lady, Terrence says. She may be dead, but I can sure as shit keep her alive.
What?
Keep her, you ask? Terrence takes out a photo album and shows you his baby pictures. He hands you a disposable camera. You walk outside and Terrence is waiting for you. Take a picture of me next to one of my friends. I want to see who I look like. A Wookiee, you say. Terrence gets offended and takes his camera back. You ignite your lightsaber and he disappears. Hurry up, she's going to wake up any minute. You walk down the hallways of the ship and realize you were born in this very tube. You realize the metal tube is your mother's womb and that you haven't been born yet. You think about the sand on Tatooine and realize that after you were born you will live in a dome shaped like a giant metal mushroom. You wonder what it will be like to live in such an environment. I'm sorry, this next line is good. You use the Force to explode out of your mother's womb and onto the sand. Dr. Eggman is your midwife.
Dr. Eggman, the midwife.
Yeah, of course it would.
Are you in charge here?
You fly out of... out of the metal tube and onto the sand. You look at the sky and see that it is blue, just like in the movies. It is a beautiful day. Dr. Eggman asks you what the secret Krabby Patty formula is. You suspect you're in the wrong universe, so you tell her that you think it was blue cheese.
Guys, hang on.
Skyler needs another minute.
Oh, Jesus. I think I'm in the wrong universe. What was your first clue?
Oh, man.
Oh, Jesus.
We're almost there. We are 2/3 of the way there.
No, sorry, I had to answer some questions.
All good. So you get interrogated?
I got lost at blue cheese something.
Yes. You suspect you're in the wrong universe, so you tell her that you think it was blue cheese. She laughs and says that it was actually crushed velvet with a little ground meat. She gives you a disposable diaper and a little pink spacesuit. You realize you took the acid tabs just 15 minutes ago and that they were so strong AF to convince you that you were Anakin Skywalker and that you were destined to become a great Jedi Knight. She tells you to hold your breath and she starts to blow you out of the womb. You take more acid. You take the acid tabs and they're strong AF enough that you can convince yourself that you are Anakin Skywalker and that the Force is within you. You fall toward the sun. The sun is a baby's head. It's crying and looks directly at you. You start to laugh. The air is too thin. You pass out. You come to surrounded by Teletubbies staring down at you. They have lightsabers and robes. A purple one reaches into his robe and grabs your lightsaber and hands it to you. After some hesitation, you start to laugh uncontrollably. You run around the ship laughing at the absurdity of it all. You realize that reality has been turned on its head and it all makes perfect sense. You kill all the Teletubbies with your lightsaber. You take control of the ship and kill all the Teletubbies. You realize they have no understanding of the Force and no use for it. You use the Force to levitate their bodies into space. You build a pyramid of Teletubby corpses that The line I said just a second ago, Sky, was you build a pyramid of Teletubby corpses that extends into space.
I'm going to die.
You levitate the pyramid and it floats into space, just like it should. The sun rises and you see the planets. You see an Earth that looks exactly like you remembered it looking. You travel on the pyramid onto the planet. You crash land on a church of midgets. You crash land and get tangled up with a group of midgets. They stab you over and over until you get free. You fight your way out of the church. You kill all the midgets except one you name Kyle and train in the ways of the Force. You climb out of the church and come to a crossroad. The street signs read Los Angeles and San Fran. You feel the strong urge to go down the road marked with the giant golden pyramid. You take more acid. You take more acid tabs and are convinced that the Force is within you. You use the Force to knock down all the palm trees in California. Your apprentice midget runs in front of a car. You use the power of the Force and cause all the palm trees to float into the air and crash on each other. You watch them bend and break under the weight of the trees. You say, that's enough destruction for one day. I kind of want more acid. You fly into downtown LA and there it is, the giant pyramid. You decide to climb the monument and be done with it. You can feel the power of the dark side in you. It's burning you. You spontaneously catch fire with the Force and are burned alive as you climb up the pyramid. You die with a sense of accomplishment. The end.
Bravo, Sean. Bravo.
Well, there you have it, folks.
What the fuck?
Shakespeare, Sean McCarty.
That's right. You are welcome.
It's so stupid.
Oh, my head hurts. My everything
what did I just
hurts.
listen to?
That would be play.aidungeon.io/main/home and then your own creativity. The algorithm is spot on.
That,
It is grade A fantastic.
I'm going to close with that. Was certainly a trip.
Is this what it's like to be on drugs?
Don't do drugs, kids.
Unless you want to feel like Anakin Skywalker and murder a bunch of Teletubbies and build a pyramid with their bodies.
And be porn with Tim Terriers.
After you rip Padme's head off, put a clone trooper helmet on it, and soccer ball kick it.
I mean, the story goes so many directions. That's the best part. It's like, it truly is a journey.
Sean, that was certainly a trip.
You are welcome.
Good night,
Thanks for
everybody.
watching.
Like, comment, and subscribe to more shit.